Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. This is the Maverick News Channel. You're watching the Freedom Reporters. Brendan Kennedy is off tonight, but we do have a special guest joining us very shortly. Rhonda Jubenville will be by, and we'll have some insight into today's top news stories, as well as a special announcement. She's going to talk about some of her future plans and what she's up to. And I think you're going to want to stick around for that because it's pretty big news for Rhonda, and I think big news for the province of Ontario, too. We're going to talk about the new Blue Party of Ontario and the upcoming Ontario Canada provincial election, which centers around, I think, largely the issues of COVID and lockdowns, the pandemic. Also tonight, Justin Trudeau's power grab. Trudeau has made a deal with the NDP, with Jagmeet Singh, a deal that will give him everything he needs, the tools he needs, and the support he needs from the NDP to remain in power until 2025. And that is a controversial thing to do, and I think that it lays out exactly what we're dealing with here. A prime minister who is interested in power. And it also exposes the NDP and our political system for what it has become, which is essentially a uniparty system, where the NDP really isn't looking to form a government. They don't need to. We have a de facto NDP government right now because they've made this deal, a deal that pretty much ensures that they'll get whatever they want, because in order for Trudeau to stay in power, he's basically going to have to bend the knee and give them everything that they demand so that he survives anything that might otherwise be considered a confidence vote, which could trigger an election. Of course, he has a minority government, but this deal pretty much ensures that he'll remain in power for the same amount of time that a majority government would remain in power, and at the same time enact policies, get legislation approved that I think both sides, all sides really, I think they all support what's going on right now, because I think that we have even a conservative group in Ottawa that is so left-wing that they're barely any different than what we're getting with the Liberals or the NDP. There are some conservatives in the Conservative Party, some of them trying to bring the party back to the center, I think. But overall, it's still suffering from O'Toole hangover. And I think it's going to take a lot to get the Conservatives back over closer to the center, where they are doing the kinds of things that their base of support is really looking for, what true conservatives in Canada are really looking for. Let's go to this clip with Justin Trudeau. This was his announcement today, explaining what his deal with the NDP is all about.
Ça crée une crise humanitaire majeure en Europe. Elle perturbe aussi les chaînes d'approvisionnement mondiales, ce qui provoque une hausse du prix des aliments et de l'énergie. Elle ébranle les marchés financiers. The war in Ukraine is having a heavy impact on global trade and the price of things we all rely on. Canada, alongside our democratic partners, is helping Ukraine defend itself against authoritarianism. It's the right and necessary thing to do. And Canadians are responding to these challenges with the same resolve and resilience they've demonstrated over the last 2 years. Even in tough times, Canadians are as determined as ever to build a better future for themselves, for our children and grandchildren, and for the rest of the world. 6 months ago, Canadians gave Parliament clear marching orders to deliver on this better future by investing in a strong and growing middle class, more good, well-paying jobs, economic growth and climate action, housing and childcare affordability, better health care, and continued reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. The message from Canadians was as clear as the mandate they gave Parliament: work together to put people and families first, deliver results, and build a better future. This is what Canadians expect from their politicians. Today, I'm announcing that the Liberal Party has reached an agreement with the New Democratic Party to deliver results for Canadians now. This supply and confidence agreement starts today and will be in place until the end of this Parliament in 2025. What this means is that during this uncertain time, the government can function with predictability and stability, present and implement budgets, and get things done for Canadians. I've thought long and hard about this. It was not an easy decision. With so much instability around us, Canadians need stability. We're different political parties. We stand for different things. But where we have common goals, we cannot let our differences stand in the way of delivering what Canadians deserve. That's why we're taking this step. Both parties have identified key policy areas where we share similar objectives, and we've agreed to work together to put the needs and interests of Canadians first. This agreement is not about compromising the...
It's about putting the needs of Canadians first, he said. When are you not supposed to put the needs of Canadians first? That's your job. That's the job that they all have, is to put the needs of Canadians first. Whether you have a minority government or a majority government, that's your job. He's interested in one thing: holding on to power. And he doesn't care what the price tag is either. So whatever the NDP wants, the NDP will get.
Core beliefs of either of our parties or denying the differences between us.
There are really very few, if any, differences between any of the parties that have elected officials right now.
What it is about is making sure that those differences don't stand in the way of delivering for Canadians.
Justin Trudeau needs stability. He needs the support because he doesn't have the backing, really, of the Canadian people. His support is weak. He needs stability. Canadians need change. They need to get this guy. They need him gone.
We both believe firmly in Parliament's role of keeping the government accountable. This agreement maintains that critical function. We'll continue to engage in healthy debate with each other and disagree on things, just like we'll also continue working with other parties in the House of Commons to reach consensus and make progress together. This is what working together constructively is all about.
Do you notice the way he speaks? It's just so rehearsed. It's this, it drives me crazy.
And we look forward to working with any parliamentarian from any party who wants to deliver for the good of all Canadians.
As long as they do what you want them to do, and the NDP, because the two parties are basically merged and are pursuing the exact same globalist agenda anyway. In fact, if you look at your record, Mr. Trudeau, everything you've been doing has been hurting Canadians, and advancing a globalist agenda.
Aujourd'hui, j'annonce que le Parti libéral a conclu une entente avec le nouveau Parti démocratique
That's the
afin de
truth.
produire des résultats
Everybody
dès maintenant
who
pour les Canadiens. Cette entente
cares to take a
de
few minutes
soutien
to really
et
examine what the government has
entre
been
en
doing
vigueur maintenant et elle
has
restera
to
jusqu'à la
acknowledge
fin de
that.
ce Parlement en 2025.
He doesn't have the
D'ici
best
là,
interests of
le
Canadians
gouvernement pourra
in
donc
mind. He has his
fonctionner dans
own
la
best
stabilité
interests in
et la
mind,
prévisibilité
and
afin de
he is
livrer la
clearly
marchandise
under
pour les
a
Canadiens.
globalist umbrella.
Je veux être bien clair.
So
Cette
too is the
entente ne
NDP.
va pas remettre en cause les valeurs
And he'll be
fondamentales
talking
de
about
chacun de
the
nos partis.
dental
On va
program
continuer à débattre
and
sainement et à
pharmacare.
être en désaccord sur certains points,
It's
tout comme on va continuer de
a
travailler avec
trap.
les autres partis dans la Chambre des
It's
communes.
another step forward
Les
toward
Canadiens ont
slavery.
élu ce Parlement pour qu'il produise des résultats et c'est exactement ce qu'on est arrivé.
He'll be
pourquoi
commenting
on
on
est
that, I
arrivé à
think,
cette
next.
entente aujourd'hui. Nobody benefits when increasing polarization, dysfunction, or obstruction dominate our parliament. When toxic
There can be no room for dissent.
toxic partisanship prevents us from agreeing on simple truths and facts.
This from a guy who spews lies and hate at every turn.
When Parliament doesn't work properly, progress stalls
Calls truckers Nazis.
on the important and urgent issues Canadians expect solutions to. This agreement is about focusing on what we agree on instead of what we disagree on what unites us instead of on what divides us. Every piece of legislation will continue to get the scrutiny
It would be really nice if somebody in Ottawa could have stood up over the past 2 years to oppose him on something. And God help us, now that we have this censorship legislation in play, ready to be passed, this pretty much guarantees that's going through. So get out your muzzles, because you won't be allowed to say anything without fear of going to jail.
merits. Committees will continue to do their essential work, and members of Parliament will continue representing their constituents and holding the government to account. Nos priorités sont les mêmes que celles que les Canadiens ont données au Parlement.
They haven't been holding the government to account. They've been in there pretty much approving everything, rubber stamping everything. And Parliament hasn't met enough over the past 2 years to hold him accountable. And how long did we go where he was just spending money without even a budget in place? This is ridiculous.
Ensemble, on va continuer de progresser vers la création d'un régime universel d'assurance médicaments. Et on va aussi lancer un nouveau régime de soins dentaires pour les Canadiens.
Concentration of power
qui va les aider à gérer
and deals to make sure the government stays in place is not about preserving democracy.
We know that rising housing costs are putting real pressure on Canadians, so we'll keep building affordable housing.
That's not the solution to housing prices. Government housing is not a solution to the market problems that are a response to government policies in place that have already created these problems. He created the problems. He is the problem. That the government is the reason for the high prices, the government policies. That's what's led to the high prices. And he's going to give us more of the same.
We'll also crack down on unfair practices and implement a home buyer's bill of rights. And we'll deliver changes that make owning a home more accessible for middle-class families and first-time home buyers.
He promised when he first ran to go to bat for the middle class. And yet the middle class is being hollowed out. And in the entire time he's been in office, all he's done is make housing more expensive for the middle class. Now, if you're a young person, good luck. You will probably never be able to afford a house. And because he's going to concentrate on government built, government funded, affordable housing. That pretty much guarantees that you're going to be living in a shoebox if you're a young person, because the government always screws up the housing market. I guarantee that this Bill of Rights will completely skew the market even more. The market, the housing market forces, the pricing mechanisms are all out of whack right now because there's way too much demand in relation to the amount of supply. And the cost of the inputs, the lumber, the wire, the copper, everything that goes into building a house, the costs are out of control. Inflation is out of control.
Families can count on us to continue delivering the change they deserve. That's why we'll keep investing so that $10 a day childcare is a reality for all families in Canada. Because we believe that every child should get the best start in life and that every parent, especially every mom, should be able to afford to pursue the career.
Is there any aspect of society that he doesn't want to control? Is there anything? Anything? Because right now they're getting their they've got their tentacles into virtually everything.
Career they want. On va lutter contre la crise climatique et créer des bons emplois bien rémunérés pour la classe moyenne. On va réduire la pollution, accélérer l'élimination des subventions aux combustibles fossiles, investir dans la formation pour les travailleurs et aider les familles à rendre leurs maisons plus efficaces.
Central planning, socialism,
bien sûr, on va aussi continuer
heavy government spending.
Nos objectifs climatiques.
The government has the
we will
solution
deliver a better deal for Canadian workers, including ensuring that 10 days of paid sick leave for all federally regulated workers starts as soon as possible this year and continuing to support labor unions. We will keep moving forward on truth and reconciliation with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. As part of this, we'll make more investments in Indigenous housing this year, continue addressing violence.
He hasn't kept any of his promises on any of these fronts. What makes you think he's going to do it now? And the NDP will not hold him accountable.
Against Indigenous women and girls, and be there to support the survivors of the residential school system. We will deliver a fairer tax system for the middle class by addressing the profits made by financial institutions during the pandemic, and we will work together to strengthen our democracy and eliminate barriers to voting and participation. All these are things that we had in our platform. All these are things that we committed to Canadians that we would work hard on and constructively on. And that's what this agreement is about. It's about fulfilling the clear mandate Canadians gave Parliament by improving the way we do politics so we can act now to deliver good jobs, climate action, more affordable housing and childcare, a stronger middle class.
There it is again, a stronger middle class. I ask you, I think the majority of people watching here are middle class or what's left of the middle class. Do you feel like since he's been in power, do you feel like the middle class is better off? If you are middle class, are you better off? Because I'll tell you, I'm certain that the middle class is a lot poorer. I'm certain that the middle class is much smaller. There are a lot of people that have lost their jobs during the pandemic. And yeah, he provided money, free money across the board, but what has that done? That's just fueled inflation. So the money that you got, and a lot of these people have to pay that money back. And not only are you paying it back, we're all paying for it in higher gas prices, which is not Vladimir Putin's fault. It's his fault. It's Joe Biden's fault because they stopped pumping the oil. They cut off the supply. More expensive for everything from groceries. And as I say, even for the inputs for building a new house or for home repairs. Go check the price of wiring for your house. I was in the electrical department at the hardware store on the weekend. I could not believe the price of wire, house wire. Off the charts. $1.80 a liter for gasoline. This is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
A better, more prosperous future for everyone.
Right.
Merci beaucoup. Je suis maintenant heureux de prendre vos questions.
Alors, comme il y a beaucoup de gens ce matin pour les questions dans la salle, les journalistes ici se sont entendus pour vous poser
Have
une
we
question.
built back better
Chacun,
yet?
pas de questions de suivi.
Just wondering.
On va aussi prendre les questions via la plateforme Zoom. J'invite les gens qui sont intéressés.
I thought that was the plan, right? Build back better.
So we'll be starting with questions in the room.
Have we even built
Reporters
back
here
yet?
have agreed to do one question each, no follow-ups because of the number of people this morning. We'll also be taking questions on
I've
Zoom.
noticed he's kind of
Raise your hand on
backed
Zoom,
off
please, if
on
you want to
using
ask
that
questions.
phrase, that
Christy Kirkup,
slogan, which is being used
Good morning,
around the
Prime
world.
Minister. The NDP has not expressed support for increased defence spending despite the evolving situation in Europe. You are en route to the NATO summit today. Does this mean that Canada will not be quickly seeking to increase our share of defence spending to 2% of GDP? Other allies are increasing their spending. What's the plan?
This agreement is about working together constructively in the areas where there is agreement. And in the areas where there is not agreement, we will continue to do the things that the Liberal Party was elected to do. And
the truckers disagreed with him, and he didn't even come out to talk to them. I guess he only talks to the people that agree with him, because he doesn't seem very willing to explore issues with people who have strong disagreement with him on some of his stupider policies.
And we'll look for support from other parties as necessary as we move forward. In regards to the situation in Ukraine, Canada is pleased to be increasing its contributions to NATO as enhanced forward presence and the Operation Reassurance. We continue to stand with Ukraine and give all the support we can. We continue to condemn the illegal and increasingly horrific war by Vladimir Putin. And I look forward to engaging with our partners at NATO and in Europe over the next couple of days.
Christian Noël de Radio-Canada.
Bonjour, M. Trudeau. De mémoire, dans le discours du trône de l'automne passé, il n'y a même pas 6 mois, l'assurance médicaments, l'assurance dentaire n'était même pas là-dedans. Alors, pourquoi avoir changé d'idée si ce n'est pas pour assurer l'avenir?
He's supporting a Ukrainian president who this week, I think it was just yesterday, might have been the day before, time zone differences, who banned 11 political parties that are in opposition to him. He also jailed his main political opponent prior to the war. And this is supposed to be the democracy that we're defending in Ukraine. I see a lot of parallels here. And isn't it interesting that President Zelensky from Ukraine said that he draws inspiration from Justin Trudeau, a guy who likes to send in goons to beat up truckers.
Politique de votre gouvernement minoritaire et votre avenir politique à vous?
Il y a bien des enjeux sur lesquels on a pu s'entendre avec le NPD, avec énormément de Canadiens pour avancer les priorités, que ce soit au niveau des changements climatiques, que ce soit au niveau de la croissance inclusive ou le logement, ou effectivement en matière de santé. On s'est engagé à investir plus en matière de santé. On travaille depuis
I definitely see some parallels
sur l'assurance médicaments
between the two.
avec l'île du Prince-Édouard.
And it's pretty clear that the censorship legislation, the anti-hate speech legislation, it's all designed to go after political opponents. And with the NDP propping him up, it's going to give him a lot more stability to do that.
McGregor, CTV.
Prime Minister, by the time this deal...
We can come back to this, but joining us right now is the one, the only, the incomparable Rhonda Jubenville.
Hi, Rick. How are you?
I'm much better now that I can do that and bring you up on the screen.
Sorry, I'm a little late.
No, that's okay. We were just enjoying Justin Trudeau's
Yes.
explanation on his deal with the NDP so that he can hold on to power until 2025.
Aren't we lucky?
I'm thrilled. As you
Although
can tell.
I remember at the election last year, he said he's going to call an election within 18 months, but I think he probably realizes if he did that right now, he wouldn't fare too well. So
Yeah, that's what I was saying. He says that we need this because we need stability. Canadians need stability. And I
Right.
said, well, I think Justin Trudeau needs stability because if he were to go to the polls right now, he would find that he doesn't actually have much in the way of support from
no.
Canadians, as the polls are clearly indicating. So I think he needs some stability and
Well,
some
that's why-
time.
Absolutely. That's why he's done what he's done. He needs a crutch and he knows he'll have it with the NDP. So I just think we're in for a long ride. What's that, 3.5 years? Ugh.
Yeah.
So
That's a long time for a minority government. You know, this guarantees that he
well,
gets
it's not
to-
a minority. It's a majority now
It
because
is. That's right.
they've got each other. So no conservatives will not have a voice at all in the next 3.5 years federally. So
Yeah, and I'd say that we are in a lot of trouble because we've pushed so far left over the last number of years. And now this means that, you know, all this legislation, all these things that are before Parliament right now, it pretty much guarantees it's all going through. No, there won't be any way to challenge any of this because the NDP and the Liberals are basically going to be able to pass everything that they want. And they're pretty much in lockstep on all of
Yes.
this stuff, right?
and Jagmeet Singh will not dare go against Trudeau because if he does, then Trudeau will pull whatever he's giving him. He'll pull it. So it's just inevitable. We're going to have a fully liberal NDP government for the next 3.5 years federally. So
Yeah. It's the censorship bill that scares me the most because it takes the voice away from a lot of people. It will make it almost impossible to criticize him if he makes use of it.
Mhm.
And they start to crack down on social media in the way that they want to. This right here might get me thrown in jail.
That's
Right.
right. But it's not, it's going to be anyone with an independent view or a platform, anyone that does not follow the liberal narrative or the ideologies, they're toast. It's really sad. I just wish people realized how scary it really is. I know people do realize it, but I don't think enough people realize it, and I just don't think there's a lot that we can do about it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think you're right. When I'm out and about, and I talk to people, it's like people just are they just go about their daily lives. They don't pay close enough attention to understand what we're losing and how dangerous all of this really is.
Yep. Well, I mean, people are working. So they're working and they're coming home and they're tending to their families and they don't have time to worry about all that. And they're hoping that the people that are in power are looking after them. But that's not happening. The people that are in power in government are not looking after them. And that's the terrible thing that's happening right now that we have to try to fix. But it's a massive machine to try to fight against. So
Yes, that's right. You know, I find that people tend to read headlines. They
mhm.
listen to short newscasts on radio. They maybe get a little bit off the internet, but they
Mhm.
don't have the time. You're right. They're too busy working and taking care of their families. They're, so they don't get into the nitty gritty and the in depth, most people on a lot of these issues. They rely on the mainstream media to be honest with them, which they're not anymore. So they're
Mhm.
being abused in that way by the mainstream media. And
Mhm.
our politicians have let us down because we have politicians who are either in sync with these policies that are clearly not in the best interests of Canadians or Ontarians, and or we have politicians who don't take the time to read the legislation before they vote on it.
Yep, that happens too.
It certainly does.
Yeah, and that scares me because I never really thought that would actually happen, but now I wonder, how often does that happen? Does that happen often, that these politicians, they're just, they see it's a mob mentality, so they sit there and they say, oh, well, the rep from that riding, he's standing up. Oh, this guy, my neighbor here, he's standing up, so I better stand up and vote yes too. And I'm thinking, are these people even reading these bills that are changing and altering our lives? So,
and the other little game that these left-wing politicians in particular play is when they title a piece of legislation or even an initiative or a program, when they come up with a name for it, it's quite often the opposite of what it really is. So they sell this to the public as, I don't know, anti-hate this, or, pro whatever that.
Right.
And it's actually sort of the opposite if you actually read what the bill is. And I'm sure that you have some examples of that maybe through the course of the conversation, you could highlight and we could discuss. But that's kind of a bait and switch in a way.
It is. It's scary.
But you have some big news.
I do.
To share with everyone tonight.
I do. So I am at this moment, I'm called the prospective, but it's essentially, I am the candidate for the Chatham-Kent-Leamington riding for the New Blue Party of Ontario. So we say prospective because once I am approved through Elections Ontario, which is a little process that I know that you're familiar with, as soon as that happens, then I am considered the candidate. So it's just a formality that I have to wait until Elections Ontario has approved me, but I have been approved by the New Blue Party of Ontario. So after that, we can drop the word prospective. And then basically when the writ drops on May 2nd, then I will be officially 100% the candidate. So,
well, I was excited to have you come on tonight to talk about your candidacy and also about the New Blue Party, as and give us an overview of what the party is about, because I know a lot of people. Well, first of all, a lot of people don't know about the New Blue Party or some of these other parties that have emerged on the scene, because they tend to vote for brands, as I've said before. The NDP, the Conservatives, the Liberals. Some people just vote the same way all their lives. But this is a different kind of election, right?
Yes, it is an election, and I think a lot of people, similar to the federal election that we just experienced, I think it's going to draw a lot of people out because a lot of people are not happy with the way that things are in Ontario. So I hope that I'm right, that a lot of people are going to come out and vote where they may not have in recent years. But I just think the state of affairs in Ontario is going to draw them out in hopes that they can make a difference at the voting stations. So the New Blue Party. So I was involved with the PPC, as you know, and when that election was done, I wanted to continue on, to find a party that aligned with the same principles that the PPC aligned with. Basically conservative, because they're conservative values, fiscally, socially, and someone that was respectful of people's medical choices, and choices on just everything. That it just seems like there's so much government overreach that is unnecessary in everything. And it's, you know, you were just talking about Justin. It's like he thinks he needs to govern us. He needs to, as if we're not competent enough. So we have to get away with that. And that's what's happening with the provincial government. Because to me, I think Doug Ford is an extension of Justin Trudeau. He's not a conservative. I don't know what he is. I'm not sure what Doug Ford is or what he's turned into, but he's by no means a conservative. So anyway, after the federal election was done, I thought I need to find a party, a provincial party, because the Conservatives are not that party. So then I did some research and I found the New Blue and I aligned with them. Jim and Belinda Karahalios, they're the ones that formed the party, husband and wife team. And they are both politicians. Belinda was actually a conservative in Doug Ford's caucus, and she was ejected from his caucus because she voted against Bill 195, the Reopening Ontario Act, which is basically the umbrella act that is governing everything that we are dealing with right now. So
and can I just interject there? That's a perfect example of titling something that's the opposite of what it is, because that wasn't about reopening anything. That was about shutting everything down.
Absolutely. So, so the Reopening Ontario Act, I think it was July, I think. So, you know, this pandemic started in 2020, March, you know, things unfolded, evolved, and then Doug Ford's government came forward with this Reopening Ontario Act. I think it was July. And basically, it was just to give them free reign of how they were going to lock us down for the next 2 years, which they have done very much, I may add. So she voted against it. She was the only sitting MPP. Only one, nobody else. So she stood there, and she's just a little thing. She stood there tall and proud, and she voted against it. And I remember when she did, and I thought, oh, that was, why would she do that? You know, because we were being fed all this other information. We were being told we need this bill in order to, you know, to protect us and to help us. But for some reason, Belinda and Jim had the foresight and the wisdom to say no. Too much governmental overreach, and we do not need this bill to protect us from the pandemic. She voted against it, and he kicked her out. She was gone. She got ejected at that time. So that was July. She and her hubby, Jim, he was involved with federal politics, conservative. He started an act, Axe the carbon tax. They didn't like that because he was against the carbon tax. They didn't like that. He was trying to bring forth some voter fraud federally, and they didn't like that. So he got booted out. She got booted out. I mean, and they got booted out for reasons that I could align with, because they were trying to call out, you know, nefarious things that were happening in government. So then they got together, did some work. And by October, it was actually my birthday, October 12th, 2020, they formed the New Blue Party of Ontario. So they've been working, and I may add, with myself just being involved in just recent months with politics and elections, it's a lot of work to start a party from the ground up. It's no easy feat. I mean, you got to look at these legacy parties that have been around since the beginning of, you know, yes. So they've been around. So, and you're trying to immerse a new provincial party. It's not an easy thing. So I have to give them kudos for how far they've come in the year and a half, basically, that they've been registered and working. So basically, as soon as the federal election was done, that would have been September last year, I looked them up, did some research on them, and I aligned with them. I liked them. I met I met Jim in November. He came and spoke at a meeting locally. I met him and I thought, yeah, I like these people. I like their policies. I like what they stand for. So I aligned with them, stuck with them, followed them more, and applied as a candidate. And here I am. So,
And just to backtrack a little bit, I mean, you and I met really because of the involvement we both had
right.
with PPC, right?
Yes, correct.
And I have to say that, you worked very hard on that
Mhm.
campaign. You're absolutely committed right through it, and consistent and dependable, and very impressive. And we all made a lot of friends.
Yes, we did.
Right?
Absolutely. A lot of like-minded people. And I feel very blessed and fortunate that I did meet a lot of these people that I would have never met otherwise. So, I think sometimes there's a little bit of divine intervention when the people cross your paths in life. And it's nice just to have a lot of people that they want good things for our province, and they want good things for people in our community. So, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm coming from. I want people to be happy and healthy and thriving and succeeding. What we've been through for the past 2 years is devastating, and the devastation that I've seen, it's not good. And I know it didn't have to be this way. It really didn't. A lot of these things were unnecessary, and that's what I'm trying to do with the New Blue Party, is to stop this from happening again. I feel in my heart that this fall they'll try to do something like this again, similar. And hopefully, if the New Blue can make some strides, that we might have a voice at Queen's Park, and we can prevent from some of this happening again this fall, which is just my opinion, but I think we might be leaning towards reverting back to a lot of these draconian measures that we've been living under the last 2 years. So,
yeah, we're already hearing things, right, that make it seem like they're getting us ready to take us back there, right?
I mean, like when Dr. Tam speaks, when Dr. Kieran Moore speaks, they're very open-ended when they, say things, for example, about the masks. Well, right now we're good, but come fall, when all the new variants come, and we might have to go back to them. So, and I've followed a lot of doctors, a lot of credible doctors and they will, they'll put their licenses on the line and saying that these cloth masks and the masks that we're buying at Walmart in the boxes, they're not doing anything. They're not helping us out in community settings. So, sure, an N95 in a sterile medical setting, sure. I'm not saying that doesn't work, but I'm talking about wearing a cloth that my, whoever made for me, or these little thin ones. And it says right on the box, does not prevent transmission of COVID-19. So why are we being forced to wear them? Like, I don't understand it. And people, I feel sad for the people that really believe it. They believe that they are protected from wearing these masks.
People have been psychologically damaged. And even today, I was out briefly. I try not to go out too much because I don't like to look around and see everything going on. It's depressing. But people working in stores that I went into today, I went to a couple of stores, and I would say 3/4 of the people working were still wearing their masks. And I asked the one guy when I walked in, I said, is the store making you wear the mask? And he said, no. And I said, well, okay. If he wants to, go ahead.
That's right. Absolutely. And I remember at the very beginning of this, when they started imposing the masks, I forget what the doctor's name was, but he came right out and said that masks out in community they're not going to make a difference with any kind of transmission.
You're talking about the local medical officer of health?
No, Well, he did say it as
He did
well.
too. He said it was like masks are like chicken soup. They might
Noodle-
make you
yes,
feel better, but they won't help you. That's
you
what he
are
said.
correct. You're correct.
Dr. David Colby,
Yep.
who
And actually,
now
just
flipped.
I actually just quoted him. March 17th, Chatham this week. He said, I should get his words verbatim. Just a second here. Yeah. So I mean, when you hear things like that, it really makes you.
There's been a constant inconsistency from the beginning on
I know.
the mask issue in particular. And even now there's a lack of consistency because even out in Nova Scotia, they have not lifted the mask mandate. If this was truly about science, I think it would be very consistent because you would have scientific data, studies to back up these public
Absolutely.
health decisions, but
I
we're
know.
not getting that consistently. It's more of like an opinion.
That's
that
right. The
a
only studies that
bureaucrat-
the only studies I've seen are the ones against the masks. So in March 17th copy of Chatham this week, Dr. David Colby was quoted as saying, and I'll read the words verbatim. This is regarding masks. They are a little bit protective, but not very protective, unless you resort to a very sophisticated type of mask, a custom fitted N95 mask. But I don't believe that is necessary in community settings, quote unquote, from Dr. David Colby. So, I mean, if they try to impose this fall, how can you accept it when you have doctors saying this kind of stuff? And I mean, I posted something yesterday on Facebook, and I've done a lot of research, and I've actually cited all of these articles that I have found credible doctors, practicing doctors, that are saying masks, they don't work. They don't work. You know, maybe, I don't know. I'm not a medical professional, so I'm not going to say they do or they don't. But when I can find 20 doctors that are telling me they don't work, then I'm going to trust that. I'm not going to trust a paid bureaucrat doctor that is paid to tell me they work, you know?
Well, the crazy thing is Dr. Colby he's saying that. He said before that they were like chicken soup. Then in between, he said that they do work, so we have to use them. So and now he's saying that they maybe work a little bit, but not too much. And this is the guy who insisted that, well, he's the one who initially put the measure in his municipality.
Right.
Which then sends the cops to people's front doors, right? And ends up with people get charged because of his decision and his opinions. And this is insane. It
is insane. And everything that's happened in the last 2 years is insane. It really is. And like, that's what I said. I go, most of this stuff, there was no excuse for half the stuff that's happened. I mean, what the kids have gone through in the schools, being locked out of their schools, being forced to mask, kids getting sick from constantly having this disgusting mask on their face, being forced to participate in gym class with masks on their face. You know, I've heard so many stories from kids. They don't want to go to, well, not now. Now it's okay, but they didn't want to go to school. They weren't allowed to be close to their friends. They had to wear a mask. It's just sad. It really is. And I'm a huge empath. So when I hear these stories, it just tears my heart. It just tears it open, thinking these poor kids, they just want to be kids. Let them be kids, you know, and the hospitals, people not being allowed to go visit their loved ones in the hospitals, people not being allowed to go be with their dying loved one. Like it's inhumane. It's inhumane what we have been put through the past 2 years. I cannot imagine being told that I cannot go hold the hand, you know, of my dear loved one while they're dying. I can't even fathom that. Or being told I can't go in to visit my elderly mother or grandmother in a long-term care facility. You know, and I have personal experience with people that I know that work in these long-term care facilities. And a lot of the residents of these facilities they weren't in agreement with this. They said, I'd rather die than be forced to not be with my loved ones. They have no sense of being. They're in a prison. They've been in a prison for 2 years. What kind of a quality of life is that for these people?
Rhonda, I have a personal experience that I'd like to share with you a little bit, and it's about someone who is in a retirement home.
Okay. Yeah.
Recently moved in.
Mm-hmm.
This person was living alone, isolated, alone for 2 years, basically in their home, fearful of the virus. They're now in a long-term care home, very nice place.
Mm-hmm.
To make a very long story short, she found out that another person in the home had applied for assisted suicide under this revised provincial legislation that makes it much easier
Yes.
to get approved for this.
Yes.
This person, in my view, and in the person's family's view, should not be qualified for it, but has been approved. And they're picking a day. This is a person who has the physical ability still to go out into the community, can go shopping, can hop in a taxi and go out, but feels like they have nothing to live for, and a bunch of other personal reasons. But in my view, the government has created this situation where you have people, elderly people, who are so depressed
I know
that like you said, they literally want to die, and the government is helping them do it.
I know.
So there's 2 people that I know of in the same long-term care facility. And this is not like they're not like terminal cancer patients either. It's not like that.
They're living
They just decided, I don't want to live anymore. I'm going to call up this doctor, and they're getting approved.
So sad. It's just scary. And it's such a slippery slope. Every time they open up, it's getting to the point that where are you going to end with it? So, if I have, if somebody gives birth to a child and the child is, I don't know, it just has a mental deficiency or a physical disability. So do I have the ability to say, I don't want this child anymore, and I think they should die? Like, where do you draw the line? Where does this end? So it's very scary.
I don't know, but this is an issue that I'm hoping that we can explore, in depth. Maybe not tonight, but another night.
Yes.
I didn't realize what the change in the legislation meant.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't aware until I became aware of this situation with this person.
Yes.
And then I went and I didn't read the change in the legislation either, right? I thought, who in their right mind would ever, of course, when they make these changes, it's going into this legislation, it will be responsible. It's got to be for people with a terminal illness who are suffering, but no, if you read it, it's so
it's
open-ended that, and the government has now created, and isn't it strange that legislation was passed only about a year ago while all of these lockdowns are happening, so they make it easier for depressed people to kill themselves.
Right.
This is absolutely insane. And I'm not saying, that I want to impose my will on somebody who has a terminal illness, or maybe that's a personal choice that someone wants to make in conjunction with their loved ones, right?
Yes.
But that's not what is going on.
No,
This
I
is
know.
like, I'm 70 or I'm 80 or I'm 65 and I've had enough, and that's what's happening. And I'm so depressed.
I know.
There's
Well,
nothing.
we have a mental health crisis going on. It's touched everyone from children up to the elderly, and it's been brought on by what we've lived under the last 2 years, and they're just going to keep on. I don't think I don't think they care. I really don't think they care. They sit up on their big screen and they say, "Oh, we're putting this much funding into, I don't know, some kind of."
It's a little bit off base here, but I'll bring us back onto track in a
Yeah.
moment. But it
Yeah.
seems to me like they want the elderly dead.
Mhm.
They really, I think they do.
know.
They don't want to pay the pensions out. I don't think
No.
they have the money to pay some of these pensions out. I don't
Either.
think they want to support these people. If you,
Nope.
not just here in Ontario, but in the United States, you look
Absolutely.
at what happened during the height of the pandemic, and look what the governor of New York did, Cuomo did. Look
Mhm.
what he did.
I know.
Trump sent him hospital
I know.
ships. He
I know
didn't
he
use
did.
them. And then he sends all the people with COVID into the nursing homes
Yep.
where they killed thousands of people.
That's right. That's
You have
right.
to either be completely freaking brain dead or you did that on purpose to make
know.
sure that they died. Because as
It's
soon as he did that, I had a conniption fit.
I
I was
know.
like, what the heck? What is he doing?
I know. It was criminal, but yet, and that's the thing. People don't know what's happening. People think he's like a movie star, or what didn't he gets nominated for an Emmy or something crazy.
Yes.
And I'm just like, what is going on in the world? Sometimes I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. I do, honestly. And then I just think, you know what? We just have to stay grounded, and we just have to plug away and chip away a little bit at a time, because good eventually prevails. You got to present it to people. Some people don't know things. And I will tell you, throughout all of this, a lot of people who weren't aware of a lot of things, sometimes if you just present them with some information, a lot of people are open to receive it. They just have never, they've never received this information, and they just didn't know. But then when you give it to them, they're like, oh, okay.
Well,
Tell
this
me
is why
more.
this
Tell
is
me
why
more.
we need people like you. We need a clean sweep. We need to get all of these guys out of there, because none of them stood up to help us, or really none of them. Anyway, the very few that did got kicked out.
That's right.
None of the others, and that's the vast majority. I'm
That's
talking like 2 or 3 people stood up. Everybody else
Yes.
just like went along with it.
I
They
know.
were not leaders. They let us down. We need to get them
I
out.
know.
Every single one of them gone,
know.
as far as I'm concerned.
Provincially, the only ones that have stood up was Belinda, Roman Baber, Randy. There was another one, I forget her name, Lindsay Park, I think her name is. I think that's about it. And then later on, Rick Nichols.
Who you will be running against, and in the Chatham-Kent Leamington riding in Ontario, Canada, especially for our viewers in other countries. But I like Rick.
I do too.
But he didn't do anything publicly. He didn't really come out to take a stand on any of this stuff until it came down to him being forced to take the injection. Then he took a stand, then he got kicked out, and then he became vocal about it. But until then, he didn't really do anything that was visible. He says he was doing stuff behind the scenes, but was he? Clearly it wasn't enough, because it wasn't effective.
Right.
And I know that during the election, Liz Valley, the candidate at the time, right, who you were involved with the campaign with, went down to his office a couple of times to protest, and he did come out to speak to people, but even then he didn't take a public stand when interviewed or asked about it by the people out there demonstrating. To his credit, he came out to speak to the people, but didn't say, yeah, you're right, I'm going to stand up for you guys. He didn't do it then. It wasn't until it was his arm that had to be held out to take the injection.
Yes, that's
then
right.
he stood up and said something about it.
I know. Yeah. And that's where, I struggle with running against Rick, because like you said, I like Rick. He's a nice guy, but the fact remains, I'm in it because I've been in it from the beginning, because I want to fight everything that's happening. and what's being imposed on us. So, and Rick, yes, he's fighting it now, but he wasn't then, right? So and I mean, there's a whole bunch of there's a lot of things that were going on behind the scenes that led me to do this as well. I want to clarify that there were some timelines dates I had to meet, and Rick had not announced that he was aligning with the Ontario Party in January. So the Ontario Party started in December, just 3 months ago, by Derek Sloan, and then Rick announced his affiliation with the party in January, and then he announced his candidacy on February 16th. And I was chosen as the new blue candidate February 18th. So it was just 2 days apart. So, some people might be questioning, well, why would you go up against Rick Nichols? It may appear to be that, but things were happening parallel to each other. It's just that it's not on the forefront. So people aren't seeing that things were actually happening at the same time between he and the Ontario Party and me and the New Blue Party. So not that I think I have to, give any explanations, but I know there are some people that are questioning that. So that's how it was happening. We were doing things together. His were on, out on social media. Mine weren't. So I'm here and, oh, good. Somebody's voting blue. Yes. I'm here. I'm in it to win it. I'm a woman of integrity. I'm not into dirty politics. I'm not going to bash Nick at all, or Rick. I'm not, that's not how I do it.
Yeah.
And, I think we have a really unique situation here in Chatham-Kent-Leamington, though. So I think it will be interesting, even from me, if I stepped outside of being the actual candidate and just was a voter in this in this riding. I think it's going to be interesting because Chatham-Kent-Leamington is typically a conservative riding, and has been basically since Rick took over. I think before Rick, which is 11 years ago, I think it might have been liberal, but
it was Pat Hoy.
Yeah. So, but then when you say liberal 12 years ago, that's a liberal 12 years ago is not liberal in 2022. Completely different parties. They've evolved into something completely different. But anyway, that's besides the point. So I just think it's going to be a unique situation because you have Rick, who is the incumbent. He's a sitting MPP, but he is not he's not representing the party that he was elected as. And then you have another gentleman from Leamington who is the conservative candidate. So he's brand new. And Leamington is not the populace of Chatham-Kent-Leamington. So he has a little bit of an obstacle because, he's from one area of the riding and not the populace of the riding. And then you've got myself who, I have a platform similar to Rick's. So it will be interesting. I don't know. I have no idea who the Liberal or the NDP or the Green Party. They haven't revealed themselves yet, so I have no idea who those people are. So, but I'm thinking, I don't know. I don't think either of them will, but who knows? I mean, strange things happen. So I guess we'll just have to see where it goes on June 2nd.
Well, in the riding of Chatham-Kent-Leamington, I think that it's just about anybody's race at this point because Rick has the incumbency, but not the party machine behind him now.
Yes, that's right.
He loses his the war chest that was built up over there. He doesn't have that. Nope. And whoever steps in over there, whoever that person is, I'm not sure what his name is. We'll have to find that out to be fair. But he doesn't have name recognition. So he has to build all that. So it's kind of wide open in this particular riding.
Mhm.
as far as I am concerned anyway. I think
That's
Rick still at this moment is the one to beat, but a lot's going to happen between now and June for sure.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And I know Rick he has support. Um, and I have support. And this
You do.
gentleman, I think his name is, I don't know. I think his name's Trevor. He's from Leamington anyway, but he'll have support just because he's the conservative, right? So there are going to be people that will vote conservative. They won't even care who the candidate is.
He gets that EDA behind him automatically, and that whole machine, right? The
Yes.
fundraising, the money that's in the bank,
Mhm.
it all goes to his campaign.
That's
So all
right.
that work that was done by Rick Nichols and his team prior,
That's
that
right.
all now is behind the person opposing him from the conservative side. But you will get a lot of support, if not all the support, I think, from the People's Party of Canada
I hope
team
so.
in
Yeah, I
in
hope
in
so.
that riding, because you have so much respect among everybody there. I know you do.
Well, I hope
So
so. I hope so. And I mean, I think the PPC and the New Blue Party, they do have a lot of parallels between
Mhm.
them. So I think somebody could make the lateral shift over. So yeah, I don't think it would be a big deal for somebody who is a PPC federal to come over to the New Blue Party provincially. So
yes, I agree. You know, the thing is too, it's like there is actually a PPO now.
I know there
But
is.
yeah, I don't know if I don't think they have a candidate locally. Maybe they do.
I don't think so. I
In
know there is one in Sarnia Lambton.
yeah, yeah.
So
Um, but I don't know if they're even properly registered at this point, because they've gone through. First, they
mhm.
were the
They
People's
are.
Party of Ontario, but they couldn't get that name, and then they were the Ontario First Party, and Randy Hillier was
Yeah,
supposed to be the leader, but
I
then
know.
now he's announced he's not going to run again. So now
I
that's
know.
all falling apart. Now it's the PPO, and I
Right.
don't even know if they have enough time to
Well,
get
they are
things organized.
registered. They are
Are they?
registered. Yes, they
Okay.
are. They are registered. They were registered maybe a month ago or so. That's when they became registered. So yeah, I don't know.
And you
I
could have easily ended up there, but you know, that's the thing that makes this whole Ontario election really
know.
weird,
I know.
especially on the conservative side, if you will,
Yeah.
because there are so many parties.
I
How do you
know.
think that's going to play out provincially?
I don't know. I don't know. I know the New Blue, they're doing a lot. They're getting a lot of information out all across the riding. I mean, Cambridge is that's her home riding, so I know that they have a strong following there. And I belong to a lot of different social media New Blue platforms, so I see where people are from and how they are aligning with the New Blue. Um, a lot of people struggle with uh, Derek Sloan and how he's came to be, how he was he was federally here in Ontario, and then he switched over to Alberta provincially, and now he's back to Ontario provincially. So that just, to me, there's no consistency, and I just struggle with the fact of that. Where does he want to be? Does he want to be in Ontario? Does he want to be in Alberta? Does he want to be federal? Does he want to be provincial? I like consistency, because to me that shows something. And Belinda and Jim have been consistent since the beginning. There's no flip-flopping, no going all over the place. They've had one goal, they're driven, and they're focused on the end game. So
And I know that she has been talking about this new anti, supposed to be anti-hate bill
mhm.
for the school system.
Okay, yeah, it's called Bill 67, Racial Equity in the Education System. That's the name of the bill, Bill 67. And it basically is just about critical race theory, which is just a buzzword, I don't know, a psychological ideology in the schools. It's been in the United States. I've been following critical race theory for a while because they introduced it down in the States I don't know, probably it's been there maybe for a year and a half ahead of us. And it has not been, it's caused a lot of issues and it's not been received well. It's anything when you hear the word equity, I think people are misled by that word because equity does not mean things are equal. It means that in order for something to be equitable, you have to lower something and you have to bring something up. So when a bill says something about equitable or equity, it means they got to lower something, meaning they have to lower the stance or the
Right, because equity does not mean equal opportunity. What equity means is equal outcomes.
that's
And
right.
so it's not about making sure that everyone has access to job opportunities. It
Mm,
means that they want to make sure that their quotas being met,
right.
that they'll even lower standards for certain people to make sure
Yes.
they get enough women or enough visible minorities or enough of this or enough of that. And
Yes.
at the end of the day, they want everyone to end up with the same level of pay,
Right.
this,
Yes.
same benefits, same everything, regardless of anyone's personal circumstances. They want
Right.
everyone to have the
The
same.
same.
That in their mind is equity. That's
I know.
progressive politics. And yes, and the critical race theory ideology, if you will, has been around actually for quite a while, and we can get into more of that if you want. But that goes all the way. That's really started largely with the 1619 Project, which was written by the woman from the New York Times,
Mhm.
Nicole Hannah Jones.
Okay.
But we could talk more about that as the conversation goes on. But yes, I mean this bill that is in front of um, the Ontario people that's going to
Yeah.
affect our school system.
Yeah.
It's like it is horrific.
It is
It
horrific. And I just can't imagine how I mean, our conservative MPPs voted for it. I really question, and so did our own MPP in our riding here. He voted for it as well. It's not passed yet. So it's gone to 2 readings and now it has to go to committee and then it'll go to 3rd reading if it gets that far. I hope it doesn't, but if it does, I honestly believe people didn't read the bill because if they would have read the bill, I just think they read the heading, the name of it. Because if in the bill it basically says that white people that I and you, we were born inherently racist because of the color, just our essence. The moment that we were born, we were racist. So I have a hard time with that. I don't believe that someone is inherently racist. And the fact that they want to teach this in our schools, so all of our Caucasian children are going to be taught that they are racist, and which is even worse is that they're going to be teaching children of color that they can't succeed and they can't thrive and they can't, conquer the world unless they are afforded some kind of privileges from white
special
people.
treatment.
It's crazy. It's
It's the
crazy. And who are they to say that a child of color can't accomplish anything? I mean, if I was a parent of a child of color, I would be livid that they are trying to impose this on my child to tell him he can't accomplish anything because of the color of his skin or her skin. Absolutely ridiculous. And why? I mean, I volunteered in the schools a lot when my children were young. Little children are not racist. They love each other. They don't care. They just want to play and be kids. They want to start this programming in kindergarten, teaching this. To me, it's teaching hate and it's teaching divisiveness. It's toxic. It's a terrible, terrible bill. And furthermore, so in the bill, they talk about subconscious racism. So
thought crimes.
I don't really know what that is.
It's they're criminalizing your thoughts,
Right?
thought crimes.
So
So-
how on earth you can legislate or govern someone's thoughts is beyond me. But if a teacher or a student or a parent or anybody in that school is, thought to be committing subconscious racism, then they can be fined. They're going to be giving these kids fine. So little 5-year-old little Joey might come home from school one day and say, "Mommy, I got a ticket because I was convicted of a subconscious racism."
It's not even just the students. I think that stuff is even aimed more at the teachers and the staff, right, at the schools.
That's right. That's right.
And they can be accused, and all it takes is the accusation. This bill also basically does away with the due process. It's so dangerous.
Yes, it is.
I'm sure it's not constitutional, but right now, with the way the country has deteriorated, it doesn't seem to matter anymore. And I see a few trolls here saying we're lying about it. We're not. Just go read the bill. Read the bill.
No lies at all. Do they?
I think that bill's only about 9 pages long.
No, it is, and it's no, absolutely no. There's no lies about it. You can look it up.
Yeah.
They probably just, I don't know, maybe they don't like what I'm saying, but
no, it's just trolls. They hate me, so it's okay.
Well, you know what? Personally, I love everyone. I'm a lover of humanity. I could care less what color your skin is, and if I ever witnessed anyone bullying a person or attacking a person or belittling a person, I am that first person to step up based on the color of their skin or their gender or their religious affiliation. I mean, we are supposed to just be accepting of all people. And that's what they should be teaching in the school. We need to be teaching acceptance and be kind and get rid of the barriers, because when they impose bills like this, they're creating more barriers. They're creating them. They're not helping to eradicate any of this. This bill will do nothing to help with racism at all. I mean, I'm not an educator, but I could think of 100 different ways, better ways to help if there is some kind of racism. I mean, and I've talked to I have a lot of friends that are teachers and educators, and I can only speak from locally, but they say racism is not an issue in our local schools. I don't know if it's going on in Northern Ontario. I have no idea, but I don't think it's so huge that it has to be imposed in a general bill like this that has to be taught in the entire school system.
But this critical race theory, identity politics, progressive politics, it is a cancer that has infested our entire society. It's in every institution. In the municipality of Chatham-Kent, they have now training for staff and counselors, right?
Yes.
It's all based on identity politics, progressive politics, critical race theory. It's all there. In every police service now has policies that are based on the presumption that the institution or the organization is systemically racist.
Right.
This is all progressive politics gone run amok.
Yes, I know it is.
It's destroying the country.
It is destroying the country. Yes. And the new blue is against identity politics. No identity politics.
And folks, make no mistake, there's a direct line that can be drawn from this woke politics that has infected our institutions directly to the truckers' protest, where they're beating people with batons, shooting them with rubber bullets, tear gassing them, and blasting them with hypersonic sonic waves from an LRAD machine that can blow
Yes.
people's eardrums out,
Right.
and confiscating people's property, freezing people's bank accounts because they've declared war on their own. The government has declared war on their own people. If you
Yeah.
don't think there's a correlation, if you don't think it's related, you're sadly mistaken. There's a direct line from that to that, because identity politics, woke politics, it all is rooted in coercion,
Yes.
use of force to make sure that there is compliance. There
That's
can
right.
be no dissidence.
That's
It's
right.
dangerous. That's why
Yeah.
this bill provincially that Rhonda is talking about has to be opposed, because it will do away with due process. People will in these school systems will lose their jobs because someone who doesn't like somebody, all they have to do is say, that person is racist. I
Yeah.
can tell because I know they're having racist thoughts.
Right. The way they look at me, the way that they stand around me, they're racist. They make me feel uncomfortable. I mean, this is just opening up a whole can of worms if this goes through. And Jordan Peterson, he did a nice, good podcast on it, just saying he said it is the worst bill in Canadian history. That's how he encompassed it. So
it's not dangerous. And it will set a precedent. If it passes in Ontario, it will spread like the cancerous tumor that it is right across the rest of the country for sure.
I really, really hope the Conservatives will vote against it, because I was just blown away that they, and like I said, I honestly don't think, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and hope that they maybe didn't read the bill. And now that all of this has been brought to light by Belinda Carahalios of the New Blue Party, she's the only one that voted against it. And I think she may have shamed some of these people for voting. And she was even surprised that a lot of the Conservatives, all the Conservatives, I don't think, she was the only one that voted against it. So every single Conservative.
Yes.
So perhaps they walked away, read the bill. I do know that that Rick Nichols, he found out a lot about critical race theory after he voted yes on it. And he did realize how terrible it is and how toxic it is. But unfortunately, it was a little too late because he already voted yes on it. So,
Well, I think he admitted that he actually didn't read it.
Yeah, I know. And that's what I'm hoping most of the Conservatives as well didn't read the bill, and they'll vote differently if it gets brought to third.
And you're much nicer and a much nicer person than I am. I find that inexcusable.
It is inexcusable, but I'm being gracious because it's done. There's nothing you can do about it. He can't revoke his vote. But it bothers me because he is still the MPP of Chatham-Kent-Leamington, and the fact that probably most of his constituents, I have to believe, I got to believe the majority of Ontario, if they were presented with all of the facts of this bill, would not be in agreement with it, because they would not want it in the schools teaching this to their children. Sure, there might be some people that agree with it, and that's up to them. But I believe in my heart the majority of Ontarians are not going to agree with this bill if they were presented it properly. So it is inexcusable that he voted yes, and it bothers me because that's his job, that we as the taxpayers, we pay him to read these bills properly and make an educated, yes or no on them. And he didn't. So that needs to be remembered when we go to the polls on June 2nd. So
he was on the program, and I wish he had come on like later when I became aware of that, because I would have held him accountable for it when he was on here, and he may come on again. And as I say, I do like him.
I do too.
But I'm here to hold politicians accountable. I'll hold you accountable too. But
I know you will, and I expect to be held accountable. And But if I'm elected, if I'm so, fortunate as to be elected by the people of Chatham, Kent, Leamington, and if I actually go to vote on a bill that I don't read, shame on me. Shame on me for doing that. That there's no excuse for that. That's my job. That is
Right.
my job. So,
And as I said, I don't think there's any excuse because I think that particular bill is only 9 pages long. It's not like you
yes,
had to read, War and Peace.
that's
It
right.
was it's
Belinda,
9 pages.
I can't say I read the entire thing in its entirety, but I did read snippets of it. I can scan through and see the things that jumped out at me that went, "Ooh, that's not good. That's not good." That was enough. That's all I needed to see. But Belinda Carahalios did say it's an easy bill to read. She even went as far to say that a child in grade 5 could probably figure out this bill and what it's all about. So, yeah. So hopefully it doesn't pass and we don't have to deal with it. But if we do, we're going to be in for a doozy in our schools if this passes. So,
And holding politicians accountable is largely what we're all about here on the Maverick News channel. You can donate to us at freedomreporters.com. You can click on the hot link in the YouTube or Facebook or Rumble descriptions and go straight to the donation page that way if you'd like to support this channel and help us keep this on the air and cover the bills and keep the lights on. And if you aren't going to donate, the least you could do is subscribe to us so that we can bring Rhonda back on again and again from time to time, and you can keep on hearing from her. Just subscribing helps us out a lot. And if you haven't subscribed over on Rumble, please do that because we're trying to migrate as many people over to the Rumble channel as we possibly can to get away from YouTube and the censorship that plagues society on YouTube. So Rumble is where the action is at for the time being, and we will be expanding out onto other platforms as well and into our new website as well, where we will have aggregated and curated news content that everyone can avail themselves of as well. But for the moment, we're back to Rhonda Jubenville, who has been on here as a freedom reporter in the past, has been a freedom fighter with the People's Party of Canada in the past, with I think the second or third most successful campaign in Canada for the PPC in the last federal election. She was an integral part of the campaign team, worked tirelessly, I know from personal contact with her during that period, and proved to be worthy of the PPC campaign team's trust. And I think that's why she's got so much support heading into this provincial election, where she is, if for those just tuning in right now, the new candidate for the new Blue Party of Ontario. And we've been talking about critical race theory and Bill C-60. Is it what? Bill 67.
Yeah, Bill 67. Yeah.
Provincially in Ontario, Canada, which has everything to do with, it's called an anti-racism bill, but I would say it's probably the most racist pieces of proposed legislation ever to be voted on in any jurisdiction in Canada.
I agree. It's racist against white people even. We just need to bring everybody. We really do need to bring everybody on a level playing field, but we don't need to do it that way. Everyone just needs to be for who they are. Just instead of we have to get away from skin color and gender and religion and all of these other things that are creating more division. And I get away from identity politics. Just get back to politics and get back to people being people.
There's nothing more racist than this far left ideology, this identity politics, because it makes everything about race. Everything is seen through the lens of race. And inevitably that leads to racism, policies that are racist.
Yeah, I agree.
It's intolerant. I thought we had reached a real point in our society where racism may still have existed in some places, but largely we had dealt with it, and we had progressed to a point where we were at a very positive place overall. But man, this seems to be like a major step backward. I don't know how we got away from the teachings of people like Martin Luther King, who said, judge people based on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. But now it's all about the color of people's skin again, right?
They're bringing it all back. They're bringing it all back. And I don't understand why. Well, I do there's an agenda, but I don't understand why they feel, because I don't think it's an issue that needs to be addressed on that level. And I'm not even saying or suggesting that racism does not exist, because I know it exists, but does it need to be so broad that it needs to be taught to every single student in every single school? Or should it just be something that is put in place in the schools so that if there is a racism issue in that school, that they have something prepared that they can deal with it in the instance when it is an issue?
To me, it seems that it's not the people who support this kind of legislation and these kinds of measures. It seems like they're really out for some sort of strange revenge.
I know.
That's kind of what it feels like. It is a form of racism. That's what this is.
I know.
And the thing that makes me the saddest is that the Canadian people and Ontarians seem to have they've bought it. A lot of people have bought into it. They're like, and I don't understand that after going through generations and progressing. And as I say, learning from the teachings of people like Martin Luther King, and now to throw all that out the window, because this is not in alignment with any of that. It's not about tolerance. It's not about judging people based on their character.
Right. No, it's not.
It scares the living daylights out of me.
I know.
It really does.
Well, we can just hope that it doesn't, I don't know. Hopefully that it doesn't see the light of day. So I'll just.
So tell me more about the New Blue Party. Do you have candidates all across Ontario? Do you know, is every riding filled?
So right now, there's 124 ridings in Ontario. And at this moment, I shouldn't say at this moment, because there could be some that I don't know about, but let's say as of Friday, we had 112 ridings filled. So that means there's 12 unfilled, but I think that there's been more filled. So we could be up to 115. We could be up to 120. I'm just going to guess. This is just a guess. 100% there's 112 filled. And I'm going to guess and say we might be at about 117. That's a guess. So, which is really good considering it's a brand new party and we've got candidates in almost every riding all across Ontario. We have riding associations in every riding. So, I think we're doing really well. They have got us under control. We've had a couple webinars already as candidates, CFOs, and campaign managers. We're going to have a convention next weekend. It's going to be virtual, and he's Jim Karahalios was very, wanted to make sure that he knew that this is not normally how he would do things, but it's just because everything has come so quickly that they're going to do it virtually. And typically they would have it in person. So, I think they got things very organized and on track. They
seem to be.
I'm feeling good.
Yeah, they seem to have their, the momentum, the organization. I think because they sort of hit the ground a little bit before some of these other parties, right. Even ones that maybe were established before, right. but weren't really that active.
Yeah.
But you guys have printed materials, you have websites, you have like I think a larger online presence than some of the other parties. You have, the candidates lined up, a lot of them. So you have a lot of organization in place already, where I think some of these other parties are still playing catch
Yeah.
up and not really a lot of time to get things done because the
No.
election is only months away in June.
Yeah. So basically, I would like to start campaigning unofficially April 1st. And then when the writ drops, probably around May 2nd, I can officially campaign. So yeah, basically there's 2 months to get ready for this election. And it's not really a lot of time, as you know, it goes by very quickly. So you have to kind of capitalize on every moment that you have and every avenue that you can take to reach people. And we don't have that big machine behind us, as you mentioned before, like the Conservatives and the Liberals and the NDP. So we're counting on people to support us, with donations or just spreading the news, spreading the information, putting a campaign sign out front of your house, spreading some literature around. We that's our disadvantage, is that we don't have the big money machine behind us. But I'm hoping that there is going to be some people that align with the New Blue Party of Ontario that want to see the New Blue Party thrive and succeed. So they'll lend us some support financially or however they can. So that's what I'm hoping for and counting on. And
Right. And you need all that machinery behind you. When you're starting out, you don't have mailing lists. You don't have, polling data. You don't have, a lot of this other information,
yeah,
the metrics that
I
the
know.
campaign teams that those established parties have from
Mhm.
decades
I know.
of elections, right? That they can
Yeah.
draw upon to say, oh,
Right.
we have to concentrate in this particular neighborhood because
Right.
we know that we have a lot of supporters over there, and over there, that's the other party. They've got those guys, so
I know.
don't waste
So
your time there.
that's right. That's where we're disadvantaged, and they know it. These other parties know it, but I'm more talking about the Conservatives, but they've got their binoculars. They're looking. They're watching and seeing what's happening, and they've got their eyes and making sure we're doing everything we're supposed to by the book, and so the Conservatives, they've got all the rules and they know everything, whereas we're learning. So if we make one little slip and do something, for example, any material, the signs or any literature has to say sponsored by the New Blue Party of Chatham, Kent, Leamington. It has to say that on every. I don't think that was the same with federal, but it is provincial. So anything that I put the New Blue logo on has to say that. And if it doesn't, there'll be somebody from one of the other parties saying it's not on there. There's a $10,000 fine. So yeah, they're watching because they don't want us to succeed, right? So
Obviously.
mhm.
Yeah. Now there was some talk about the conservative parties
Mhm.
sort of working together so that they wouldn't in some ridings run candidates against each other so that they could put forward a more robust challenge to the established parties. Do you see
Yeah.
much of that happening here? For instance, like I don't know if there's a PPO candidate here, but would there be discussions like that saying, well, maybe in this riding they wouldn't run a PPO candidate, and then
Right.
maybe in another riding they wouldn't run a New Blue candidate to run against a PPO or a Ontario Party person?
So there was a letter from Derek Sloan that was issued to the New Blue Party. I want to back up a bit, and I just want everybody to know that the New Blue Party, as I mentioned before, was established in October of 2020. And as things advanced and we knew the provincial election was coming on, Jim and Belinda and their team invited everybody that we can think of right now has been invited to speak to them. So that would be Derek Sloan, Rick Nichols, Roman Baber, Randy Hillier. They've all been invited to speak with all of the members of the New Blue, the whole team, and they were invited to join. They were all given that. and this is going back months ago. This is before they put out their call for candidates, because let's just say hypothetically, Rick Nichols said, yes, I would love to join the New Blue. Then, he would have been the incumbent for the New Blue Party, and then he would probably be running for the New Blue Party. That's a hypothetical. So they gave everybody an option, and they did that before they even put the call out for election or for candidates, and nobody bid on it. My personal opinion is it's about an ego thing, and I don't get it. I don't understand, because if you're in it for the people of your riding, your ego shouldn't be a part of it. You should just want what's best for the people in your riding. So I don't understand it. Anyway, all of them declined. They put the candidate applications out, and they were due. Those candidate applications were all due January 20th. And then a few weeks ago, you start hearing little rumors and little murmurs about them reaching out to the New Blue, asking, oh, do you want to work together? Do you want to, you take this riding and I'll take this riding, and you go in that riding and I'll go in this riding. It's ludicrous. I think it's ridiculous. How would that ever be effective in legislature? How is that ever going to be? To me, you go big or you go home. If you're not going to run a full slate of candidates with the ability to get as many seats as you can, why would you bother? I don't really understand. And I know the Ontario Party issued a letter to the New Blue Party. It was dated March 7th, asking for them not to run candidates in, for example, not to run a candidate in Chatham-Kent-Leamington. That was actually worded in this letter. Can you not run a candidate in Chatham-Kent-Leamington? Because we have one. That was March 7th. I was chosen on February 18th. So basically they were, I guess, saying, you can tell Rhonda, sorry about all the work that she's done so far. And, how she had to have an extensive background check and had to pay for it and had to go through interviews and applications. Just tell her, no, you don't want her. So that's basically what the letter said. Just silly. It's silly. I just think it was silly. I don't understand what their point was even doing it. So
Right.
Maybe they don't want to run candidates in all their ridings, and that's their prerogative, but that's not how the New Blue works. They want to tackle on this Conservative government. And you're not going to do it with half a slate of candidates. That's not going to work. So.
Yeah, and it's hard to build a party and build momentum and build for future elections too, if you're not running a full slate, if you're not seen to be, if you're not running candidates across the board, it's hard to build credibility with the public as well, and build a presence and a name and recognition, right? A brand recognition. That's a very difficult thing to do. So I totally get that.
Yeah, it is. And, you might have family members that live in a different riding, and they might see what's happening in your riding, and then they go to their riding, and if they don't have that party there, it gets discouraging for people. If I said, oh yeah, we've got a great New Blue party in Chatham-Kent-Leamington, and then you go to Lambton-Kent Middlesex and they don't have one, and then it's just like, it just doesn't appeal to people when they can't have some kind of consistency. Because when they go to the ballot, they always know there's going to be a Liberal, there's going to be an NDP, there's going to be a Conservative, and there's going to be a New Blue, right? So they have to form that. If they don't, to me, from a business perspective, I think it would be silly if you're not going to run a full slate of candidates. I mean, I guess they want to play nice and be all lovey and, whatever.
Well, I think a lot of the idea behind this strategy of not running candidates against each other among these newer conservative parties is that they're really concerned about the lockdowns, the mask mandates.
Yep.
They want to tackle those issues, and they really want to get, you know, enough candidates in there so that they can challenge the
Right.
Conservative Party. But I would counter with that in a similar fashion to you. I would say if you're that concerned about it, then you
Mhm.
better find a way to unite and not instead of running fragmented campaigns across the province.
Or better yet, why did Derek Sloan even start a party in December? I mean, he has that right, but the New Blue was already there a year before. They've been around since October of 2020. So why in December of 2021 did he even need to start a party? What drove him to do that? What was the compelling reason for him to do that? I don't understand. So
Yeah, one could speculate there, you know, there could be a myriad of reasons, but
it is, but if you've already got a party there that's fighting the machine, their platforms are very similar. So it just makes no sense.
so
Why
what is it that separates the New Blue from those other parties then, including the Conservatives?
Well, the Conservatives, in my opinion, the provincial Conservatives, in my opinion, I think they're liberals. They're centrists. They're not conservatives. Doug Ford's Conservatives are not conservatives. And I don't even think he runs on his platform. He just does his own thing. I think he just does what Justin Trudeau tells him to do. So I don't really know what the difference between us and Doug Ford's Conservatives are, because I don't know what Doug Ford's Conservatives are. They're not conservative. As far as the difference between the Ontario Party and the New Blue Party, we haven't officially released our platform yet. It is there. I've seen it, and it's nice. It's a good platform, and it's being released next weekend. They're doing an official release with all of the candidates. I don't know. I haven't really investigated the Ontario Party's platform. They could be very similar. I know, like their ideologies are very similar.
There does seem to be a religious component to the Ontario Party that
Yes,
is not present in the other
I
parties.
agree. I have heard, and I've seen or heard these. I've heard there have been some negative comments that Derek Sloan has made against the LGBTQ community. And I do know he is very strong on his pro-life stance. And that, you know, not everybody is pro-life, and a lot of people are very accepting of LGBTQ community. So I think those two religious components in those two aspects might divide us against, or divide us, like just separate us, sorry, could separate us. Again, the New Blue Party is not about identity politics, so we're not really subscribing to the LGBTQ movement as per se, but as far as people that are part of the LGBTQ community, I mean, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter to you is the point, right? It's like, just come as you are.
That's right. It doesn't matter. I don't care, and neither does the New Blue. We don't care what gender you are. We don't care what race you are. You are a human being, and that's how we at the New Blue, that's how we see everyone, as humans with rights, inherent rights, not any different. No separation between people based on color of skin, gender, religion, you know, race, creed, whatever, the list goes on. There's no separation between those people. So yeah, I think you're right in the respect that there's that religious undertone with the Ontario Party. And maybe some people, I mean, I consider myself a faith-filled person, And I know the Carahalioses, they are as well. But to me, I think religion and politics don't necessarily belong together. I think there should be a separation between them. So I'm okay with being indifferent on those two matters that I mentioned. And I don't know.
Are there other we've spoken about a little bit about the mask issue,
Mhm.
the Bill 67
Mhm.
racist bill.
Yeah.
What other issues are key for you and the New Blue, but especially for you?
Well, the New Blue Party MPP Belinda Carahalios is still so we are still under the emergency orders from the Conservative government. We're still under them. He's extending them. So, and she's trying to get him to revoke them, but they're not going anywhere.
And people don't understand that, right? Because this week we're seeing in Ontario, the mask mandate is mostly gone, not entirely. In some places, you still have to wear the masks, but it's mostly gone for the time being. But you're right, that emergency act is still in place. What's your response to that? And if you were in office, what would you do about it?
Oh, sorry. I think
that's okay.
I'm not sure what happened because the computer, I just lost you for a minute, but I don't know exactly what you said, but I do know that the emergency order is still in place. So at the drop of a hat tomorrow, if Doug Ford decided to say, we're going to get locked down, you got to wear your masks. There's a vaccine passport to go into a restaurant or a gym. If Doug Ford wanted to do that tomorrow, he has the ability to do it. And she's the New Blue Party is trying to stop that. And she's the only one trying to stop it from happening. So, when does it end? When is this emergency going to end? Are we really in an emergency right now? Have we really been in an emergency situation? I don't know. I don't like the overreach, the governmental overreach that he has, and the ability that he can do as he wants to at the drop of a hat. So that's one thing that I'm, aligned with them on. Bill 150. So that's Bill 195, Reopening Ontario Act. Another one is Bill 150, ensuring transparency and integrity in political parties, which is basically trying to eliminate voter fraud because it does exist. Not sure if people followed the United States election at all, but yes, voter fraud does exist and it happens. So and there's a huge taxpayer subsidy that's given to these legacy parties. So they're given like absorbent amounts of money based on the fact that they've been around forever and they're big. So they get all of this money that is crazy amounts of money at our expense. So this bill is trying to eliminate that, the voter fraud and the taxpayer subsidies. What else is she?
You're referring to what the money that goes back to the candidates and the parties because of the percentage of the votes that they get in each election, right? Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. So
do you think the chambers of commerce and other institutions will allow you to participate in debates in the upcoming election?
Well, I already thought about that, and I'm hoping they will, because I'm represented in legislature, right? So Liz was disadvantaged because there was no sitting member.
To bring people up to speed, no PPC candidates, as far as I know, were allowed to participate in Chamber of Commerce debates across Canada because the chambers are basically politically captured. institutions, organizations.
Mhm.
So they're beholden to woke
That's
politics
right.
and government
So
grants and so on. So yeah, the PPC candidates weren't allowed to participate. Maxime Bernier wasn't even allowed to
I
participate in
know.
the national leaders debate, which was
Yep.
televised. So I'm wondering what's going to happen provincially.
Well, it will be interesting because I mean, Rick is the incumbent. So if they let him go, they have to let me. There's no difference between us. We both are. I mean, I'm not the sitting member, but the New Blue Party has a sitting member, just the same as Rick. So there really is no difference. And if they include him and not me, they're gonna hear from me. So I don't think that would be very fair. There would be no consistency in why they would allow him and not me. So I guess we'll wait and see when it happens, and hopefully we are both, along with the Liberal, NDP, and the Conservative. I hope that we are all afforded an opportunity to participate in any debates.
Well, I hope so too, because that's an issue of free speech, and I
Absolutely.
think the public needs to be served properly through
Mhm.
these kinds of through these debates. And
Yeah.
it was extremely disappointing to see organizations like these chambers of commerce, and there were other institutions too that would not allow PPC candidates or even some other parties to
Yeah.
participate in community level debates. I don't think that serves the people properly. It's not in the best interests of the public. It was clearly an effort to censor and suppress at
Absolutely.
that time. And as you know, I'm very much opposed to that. I'm all about free speech and
Yeah.
freedom, which is what we're doing right here, right now. Um,
Absolutely.
trying to give everybody a voice, right?
Yeah, and I agree. I am 100%. Even people that have reached out to me in opposition, they, have conveyed their feelings about me and the party that I've chosen. And I just tell them, I will fight for you to have the ability to talk and just say what you just said against me. I will fight. I don't care. I mean, I care, but I'm going to fight for them to say, I don't agree with you, Rhonda, and I'm going to vote against you, Rhonda.
Right.
I will fight for them to have that right, because if we lose those rights, then our democracy is completely gone. So I respect anybody who has a different opinion, or if they want to vote Liberal, or if they want to continue voting Conservative. I don't understand why anybody would want to vote for the Conservatives if they are really a conservative, but whatever, that's their right. So I will respect that.
That's that's why it's so difficult to hold on to freedom. That's why, free countries are in short supply these days. And I don't
Yeah.
believe Canada is a free country anymore. It's because of what you just described. If you believe in freedom, as you do, you
Mhm.
give your opponents the right to speak, and you fight for that. But
That's
they
right.
don't want you to be able to speak. They want to shut you down and shut you
Mhm.
up. And
I
once
know.
they do that, it's
Mhm.
almost impossible to get that free speech back,
I
because
know.
you can't speak about it anymore. And
I
that's
know.
what Justin Trudeau is doing federally with this censorship bill. And if it
Yes.
passes, then he's going to shut a lot of people up. And they already have, by deplatforming,
Mhm.
banning, and even throwing people in jail. And
I
that's
know.
what shutting that trucker convoy, freedom convoy down in Ottawa was all about.
Mhm.
It was about shutting
That's
people.
right. That's right. Yep. Instead of, he could have easily resolved that. Easily, easily, easily. He didn't even want to meet these people at the table. He could have met them at the table, told them, this is my stance, negotiate, right? He's in place because people voted him in. He wasn't voted in as a dictator. So
These are
another
these are global strategies that are being employed here, and that's why I keep pointing out that even this week in Ukraine, Zelensky banned 11 political parties that were in opposition to him. He just banned them.
right.
Took advantage of the war,
Mhm.
used that as an excuse to ban his political opponents.
Right. But is that being put on mainstream media?
No, No, it's not.
Right.
And and I'm sure that Justin Trudeau would love to do the same thing here. And don't
Oh,
be
yeah.
surprised, folks, if by the time
Mhm.
we get to the next federal election,
Oh,
because
yeah.
he now has the support of the NDP to stay
Mhm.
in power until 2025, that by that time, a lot of these other parties, like the People's Party, will be outlawed,
I know.
banned. And if you're a member of those parties, you might be in a little bit of trouble.
I know. It's very scary. And I wish people were scared. But I think people have the mentality that, if they vote liberal, or if they're liberal minded and they chose to be vaccinated and chose to follow the mandates, that they have nothing to worry about, that doesn't affect them. And that's scary, because it doesn't affect them right now, but that doesn't mean there's going to be something else come into play, because nobody is protected. Nobody has this protective barrier around them. And if you think that you're protected, you're not, because they will come after you eventually for some reason. And it's sad that people think that, and it's scary that people don't care, that they think, oh, well, it doesn't affect me right now, but what about my neighbor, and what about my family member, or what about whoever. But
They've been told that they live in a free country. They
yeah.
believed that they lived in a free country. They
Mhm.
think that they can still trust the media, which they can't, because the media has been bought and paid for now. They don't understand that they've lost their freedoms, even as they have been completely stripped of them. So they're walking around and they think that because they're still able to go to Shoppers Drug Mart and Costco,
Mhm.
that they're still free people. And in
That's right.
reality, they have no rights left, no freedoms at all, and they're
No,
in a lot of danger, because
I
this
know.
is just the beginning. This is
Mhm.
just the beginning. And as I've said many times over the last few weeks, since the invocation of the Emergencies Act, Canada is lost.
Mhm.
Canada is gone, and
Um,
God help us, but we have to find a way to get it back. That's what
yep.
we're fighting for. That's what this is all about. And free speech
Mhm.
is the key to everything. Without free
Absolutely.
speech, we have absolutely no freedom at all. Nothing.
No,
It's the
because how
most
do you
valuable thing we have.
how do you share information if you can't tell people something? How do you share about an injustice that's happening? You don't. It's very scary. And people get upset when you refer to what happened in Nazi Germany, but that's a lot of the way that's a way that he hid a lot of people from what was actually happening. A lot of the people didn't even know what was happening. They were completely isolated from it. They didn't find out until after that there were actual concentration camps, and that people were telling on their neighbors, and bad things were happening to people. So when you suppress people and don't allow people to say truths, that's a very scary thing. And I think everybody should be very fearful of that happening in Canada.
It already has happened, and it's getting worse. And and they're putting the final nails into the coffin of
Mm,
what was a free society, even as we go shopping and go about our business every day.
yeah.
And I keep asking myself and asking other people, have we built back better yet? Because it sure don't seem like it.
Oh, no.
Um, yeah, I'm petrified. But that's why we're here fighting. And again, folks, if you can support the channel, you can donate at freedomreporters.com, or you can hit the hot links in the YouTube and Facebook descriptions. Um, we have a lot of people here who have become part of this Maverick family here on the Maverick News Channel, and we're grateful for all the support we have been getting. We have a lot of ground to make up as we try and take back the country, and that's why we're here talking with Rhonda tonight, because she has been a consistent freedom fighter
Mhm.
for the past 2 years, never wavering, always on point, always on target, and now she's putting herself forward as a political candidate for the new Blue Party of Ontario. And for those of you just joining us, she's running in the riding of Chatham-Kent-Leamington, but she's here to kind of fill us in on what the New Blue Party is all about tonight, and explain kind of what the strategy is, what their platform is, because it's a pivotal election. It's a critical election, especially in Ontario, Canada, because it's also fragmented right now. We've had this, what was supposed to be a conservative government in Ontario, but it hasn't been acting like one at all, has it?
No, no. The Ford government has gone rogue. So, and the MPPs that are still considered conservatives, they dare not speak against them because he already ejected 5 or 6 out of his caucus. So they're either gonna toe the party line or they're gonna be booted out. So
yeah,
this will be interesting.
What about economic issues, Rhonda? What about the economy and, and I think especially the assault that we've seen on small businesses?
Yes, and he does have some good strategies, but they are very specific to the platform, and I'm not allowed to talk about them, and it will be revealed next weekend. So he does have a couple specific strategies that he is going to, or I shouldn't say they. And the platform was composed, it was a lot of input was from a lot of people. It wasn't just one platform dictated by one person, which I thought was nice. There was a lot of input from candidates and from board members with the New Blue. So he does have some good strategies, but like I said, they're very specific. So I can't really say what it is because I'm not supposed to reveal it just yet. But next weekend, he's going to reveal it. It'll be posted.
This is Jim Carhalios, you mean?
Yeah, Jim Carhalios.
From the New Blue Party.
Yeah. Yes. When I say he, I'm talking about Jim because he's the leader of the party. So, so there's a couple good things to do with tax relief, education tax relief for parents that choose an alternative form of education, hydro relief. So things along those lines that he has, or they have put forward for their platform. And like I said, it'll be released next weekend.
We've seen from the other parties, and I'll start sort of like already the effort to sort of buy votes. Yeah. So it sort of started with one of the Liberal members of provincial parliament saying that if reelected, he was going to propose that they subsidize and help people buy snow tires. Okay.
Right.
I don't know if you remember that. That was a few months ago. But when I saw that, I was like, oh, they're going to help people buy snow tires. I'm just kind of curious how you feel about that and what you think. Like, does the provincial government need to help people buy snow tires for their cars?
All I can say is nothing is free. So when they're going to hand something out, and even in the New Blue Party, there's going to be concessions, there's give and take. So just like this, our license plate stickers, everybody thought, oh, that's great. We don't have to pay license plate stickers. But now he's going to impose these digital car ID. So every car, I forget if it's 2 years or 3 years, they have to basically have a safety every 2 or 3 years. That hasn't been, well, actually, I know some people that own like auto body shops. So that's what's coming down the pipeline. So you're going to have to, so basically every car is going to have to go through this extensive safety, and everything is going to cost money.
Whereas in Ontario, it was a situation where if a used car was sold,
Mhm.
and purchased, at
Yeah.
that point when it changes ownership, it has to go through a safety check.
Right.
Or if the car is identified, say, by a police officer as
Right.
possibly needing repair,
Right.
then you might receive an order to take it
Yeah.
in to have a safety check done, or your insurance company could
Right.
request that.
I think ultimately they just don't want cars. They want us to go electric, so they're going to make it very difficult for us to drive gasoline cars. So
I agree. I think there's a war on cars.
yes,
now.
there is. There is a war. I mean, it's hard to even buy a car. I just got a new car, but you have to wait forever. These chips are hard to find, and they've created all of this that we're dealing with. These are all created by all of these oligarchies and elite people that are
Manufactured crisis one after
Yeah.
another. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, okay. So going back to Ford now, it made them look good. I'm not going to charge you guys for your stickers, but little do they know, come this fall, there's going to be something else that is going to be a lot more than buying a sticker for your license plate. But a lot of people don't realize it, and they're like, "Oh, yay!" And I'm going to vote for Doug Ford. So,
yeah, I mean, I hate standing in line at the Ministry of Transportation office to buy my stickers every year, but I'd rather do that than have to jump through all the hoops with a safety every couple of years and have to fork out the money
that's right.
for the service and for the check, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, the repairs are the repairs. If your car is not safe, I guess, although it depends on what they determine safe is.
Right.
But man, it makes me want to move to like Tennessee or Texas or
know.
Florida, where
I
the regulations are a lot less stringent.
I know. It's tempting, right? It's tempting to get out, and it's just one thing after another. When is it? And I think come this fall, we're going to probably see all these, the mask mandates and the vaccine mandates. I think we're going to see them all come back in Ontario. So I don't know. I hope maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. So
here's what, I also worry about. You have a bunch of new parties, so it's an uphill battle.
Right.
Right. It just is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Doug Ford and the Conservatives. Has to be one of the most unpopular politicians in the country. So I see them potentially being devastated.
Mm-hmm.
But if that support doesn't go to these other parties, and even a portion of it goes, say, Liberal.
Right.
Now we've got a party in place that's even more left-wing, even more radical, or maybe we get an NDP government again. Like I was still working at CTV when Bob Rae was elected,
right,
with the NDP in Ontario, which most people never saw coming.
Right.
That was an experience, boy.
Yes.
But boy, if you think that was a left-wing NDP government, wait till you see what you get if you even elect these Liberals in Ontario now, or the NDP. They're so far left of Bob Rae's former government that you won't even be in left field, man. You'll be in the next universe left with these guys. So that scares me because there's so much fragmentation. I can't really tell where this is going. But even if all these votes are split up among all these other parties, it's sort of like this is like a wide open door for a very radical left-wing government coming in, as far as I can tell. What's your assessment of that?
Well, I know what you're saying, and I've contemplated that as well when I was deciding to do this, and even in our own riding, because I know there's going to be division between the Ontario Party and the New Blue Party. I know there's going to be division, and so that could lead to the Conservative guy getting in to the Chatham-Kent-Leamington riding. But when I look around and I talk to people are not, for the most part, people are not happy with the state of our province. So if you're not happy with the way things are right now, why would you vote the same thing back in. This is what I don't understand. And to have this mindset, well, if I vote for the New Blue Party, then the Liberals might get in. But I would like to vote for the New Blue Party, but I'm afraid to, because I don't want the Liberals to get in. So why do people have that mindset? If they want to vote for the New Blue Party, vote for the New Blue Party. And if everybody who wants to turn this province around, which I honestly think in my heart, the majority of Ontarians want to turn this province around and get rid of the Ford government. Just vote the way that you want to vote and quit worrying about splitting the votes. And I honestly say, if you vote for Doug Ford's Conservative, you might as well vote Liberal. I don't really think there's much difference between the two at this point right now. So if you want to vote for a party that's going to turn things around and get rid of all of this nonsense that's happening in the province right now, I think the only option is to vote for the New Blue Party of Ontario. So I don't know.
Can I run a clip here of Candace Bergen today talking about Justin Trudeau's deal with Jagmeet Singh, and then get your opinion on this?
Sure.
Okay.
And our focus is on the people in Ukraine and what they're going through. We were planning this morning to come and to announce to Canadians some good news that the Conservatives are going to be presenting a motion this morning, and we'll be debating it today, that would see Canadians save a little bit of money at the pumps. We were hoping we could get agreement with the other parties and that we could see a reduction in taxes, just even a temporary GST and tax holiday for Canadians, and we were looking forward to getting some support on that. And we will be talking more about that shortly. My colleagues will be speaking about that. But something broke last night, and it was obviously something very important. We found out last night that the NDP and the Liberals were meeting secretly, and they've cooked up a backroom deal that would see Justin Trudeau get the majority power that he tried desperately to get last fall in the last election, but he failed to get. This deal means that Canadians have woken up to, in essence, an NDP Liberal majority government. I think we have to let that sink in. This is an NDP Liberal government, and they have the majority. 82% of voters did not vote for a Liberal NDP government, including millions of Liberal voters. These Canadians woke up this morning to the fact that they have been hoodwinked and they've been deceived by their Prime Minister. Now, let me be clear. This is nothing more than a Justin Trudeau power grab. He is desperately clinging to power. His number one goal, as we have seen over the course of the last 6 years, is always to do what's best for him, not to do what's best for Canadians. Now, make no mistake, the NDP are in charge. What does this mean? Well, it means the decimation of Canadian oil and gas and LNG, which we know this more than ever. That means that is really a way to prop up Putin and Russia. When the NDP Liberal government phase out, which means destroy Canadian oil, gas, and LNG, they are helping Russia. And that was one of the top priorities they had, and that Justin Trudeau has agreed to. It means mining, agriculture, fisheries are all next under the extreme policies of the NDP, which are now Liberal policies. It also means $214 billion, just that we know of, in new spending for Canadians. And that's who's going to be spending. That's who's going to be bearing the brunt of the new NDP Liberal government. All of which for Canadians means more debt, more inflation, more jobs lost, more uncertainty, and frankly, more polarization. This is not a good day for Canadians. I'm here to say that we Conservatives are still conservative. We have not changed. We are still here to fight for Canadians. And Canadians can count on Conservatives to be consistently conservative. We are the party of less government spending. We are the party of low taxes. We are champions of Canadian natural resources. We are champions for Canadian farmers, for Canadian small businesses, for Canadian workers. We are champions for Canadian families. We are champions for Canadian taxpayers. And we are here to help Canadians save money. Canadians, millions of Canadians this morning, I think, are in need of hope. Canadians are waking up to this NDP Liberal government. They are, many of them, in shock. There is, I'm sure, a lot of despair in the West right now around this decision. And so we're going to spend the next little while reaching out to millions of Canadians, including those who have not voted Conservative, to let them know that we will continue to be their voice here in Ottawa. And we will do everything we can to hold this NDP Liberal government to account, including speaking directly to Liberal MPs who I'm sure did not tell their constituents that they would now be part of an NDP Liberal government. So with that, I'm going to ask my colleagues Ed Fast, Dan Elbis, and Gerard Deltel to come and talk a little bit about our Opposition Day motion, and then we're happy to take questions.
So, what do you think?
I don't know. I think he's a tyrant. I think they're both. Now we have two tyrants leading us.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I'd say that Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau, they have got to be the two most radical politicians in Canadian history.
Yeah.
And I believe he's the worst prime minister ever.
Yes.
In Canadian history, and I don't believe he deserves the job, and I don't believe he is acting in the best interests of Canadians at all.
He was coronated. He was coronated into that role. He didn't. I mean, I think he brought out a lot of millennials who thought, "Oh, he's got nice hair. He takes selfies. He's cool. He's going to legalize marijuana, so we're going to vote for him." So that's how he ended up being where he is. And
he's got the name.
Yeah, he was coronated because of who he was. He's a terrible prime minister, and I don't know how the Conservatives are not going to be able to do a darn thing. We're just going to have to live with whatever draconian rules he decides to impose on us. I don't know how else to fix it, because nobody's going to fix it.
How would you see the new blue putting pressure on? I mean, I know that it's provincial, I'm glad that you're running, because I've spoken in the past about getting people involved in politics at every level, right?
Yes. Yep.
Because that's the only way you can really affect change.
That's right.
Is politically.
Yep, I agree.
So I'm glad that you're running. But how would you try to affect change if you were elected? Because I see, someone like yourself, if you had that platform, if you had that position, you wouldn't necessarily need to be limiting your voice to just provincial issues. You could be addressing things at a federal level as well, and even a local level.
Yeah.
How active do you think you would be in that way, and how would you employ your voice that way?
I mean, federally, sure, you can speak, but you don't really have much of a platform federally. Yes, I would absolutely speak out against Justin Trudeau and his partner there in crime, but I don't know. I hate to say it. I just think that they've got us tied. And the Conservatives, the thing that bothers me about the federal Conservatives is, for the past 2 years, they've been silent under Aaron O'Toole. They have been silent. I never really was fond of Aaron O'Toole. He, to me, he's a liberal also in a blue suit. So, and then all of a sudden during this trucker convoy, all these conservatives, federal conservatives, start coming out of the woodwork, saying, "Yay, convoy, yay." So, I mean, it's wonderful that they're doing this and that they're speaking out and speaking on behalf of the Canadians, but I really I really question their sincerity, because where have they been for the past 2 years? I don't know. I'm honestly struggling with a lot of these federal conservatives. I don't want to be narrow-minded to think that some of them are sincere, but I am still struggling with the fact that they're professing to be for the people right now, because where were they? Where were they 6 months ago? So,
Yes. Well, let's
Um,
listen to Jagmeet Singh, and then I'll get you to comment on him
put into
too.
this agreement. That's something that they voted against not a year ago, and we were able to fight to get that. Pharmacare is something both the Liberals and the Conservatives voted against just 2 years ago, and now we're moving forward with it. So these are two priorities of ours, both dental care and pharmacare. In fact, both the Liberals and Conservatives voted against it, and now we're moving forward with it. So these are our priorities. We did not give up. We will not give up. We will never give up. We're going to continue to fight to make sure people get the help they need.
Yes, but to follow up on that.
Long-term care.
Yeah, please,
and
yes.
on long-term care, it remains our position that private care has clearly been demonstrated as the worst care. It's clearly demonstrated that people were put second to profits, and that our loved ones, seniors, did not get the best care possible in for-profit homes. And it remains our position that there should not be for-profit care of our vulnerable seniors. Absolutely, that remains our position. And what we fought for is a long-term care act. And that act should include what is the best practices, what are the guarantees to make sure seniors get the best care possible.
So to follow up on that, does the deal break if the Liberals say no, it's going to be private, public? And just a really quick follow-up question on, you said you were willing to pull out of this agreement if they don't follow through. Some of the markers are for 2022. Take dental care for 12-year-olds. We're in March. Doesn't look like anything started. Like, how quickly can you start to think about, maybe pulling out because the Liberals aren't upholding their part of the deal?
Very fair question. But I want to just start off. I'm going into this because I want to get this done, because people need the help. So my approach isn't to find ways to tear it down before it begins. I want to find ways to make this work. And I understand, and I want folks to understand, this isn't the end product. This is a starting point. This is our ability to use our power to get results for people, but we're going to have to continue to fight for it. And that's why we're going to continue to put pressure to hold this government to account. We're not going to let them off the hook just because we have this deal. We're going to continue to fight. And I'm approaching it with the understanding that I'm going to have to fight every step of the way to get more help to people. But I am hopeful that the deal will be honored. But it is true that at any point in time, we are able to withdraw our support. I'm not going into this with that in mind. I want this to work. I feel like, and inserting a marriage example here, I'm not going into this hoping for it to fail. I want it to work, but we're going to this eyes wide open. We have full accountability. We have the ability to withdraw our support, but we're hopeful that it works, because this is in the interest of Canadians. It's in the interest of people. It's in the interest of kids that they get dental care, and I want that to happen. The first step that we will be able to evaluate this, the first step will be the budget. And so we will look at the budget and assess the commitments that we want. Are they in the budget? Are there costs there? That will be the first test of this relationship.
Alex Badingal, Toronto Star.
Just, Mr. Singh, you keep saying that you still have priorities that are outside of this agreement that you're going to keep pushing for. But haven't you given away your leverage in a minority parliament by saying you're going to support Liberal budgets, you're going to support them on confidence votes? How will you actually secure things that are outside of this deal that you want, including things like the wealth tax or whatever other campaign promises, if you've promised to support their budgets?
Well, we have some evidence not too long ago. In the beginning, the first minority government in 2019, we did not want to cause an election, but there were a number of pieces of legislation that needed to be passed. And we were able to use those moments to negotiate for more and to fight for more. And so it wasn't limited to budgets or confidence motions where we were able to fight for additional things. If you know New Democrats, you know that we are fighters. If you know me, I'm a fighter. I'm going to fight every step of the way to want to get these things for people right now, but to continue to fight for more. People need more. My team wants to deliver more. They're not satisfied with just getting a little bit of help to people. We want more help. And that's who we are. That's who I am. So we're going to keep on pushing. We're going to keep on fighting. And there are going to be moments where we disagree. And that is a part of this agreement, that we are going to disagree. But we're hopeful that there are going to be opportunities outside of this agreement where we can actually get more for people. And we're going to continue to do that. And we've done that. And I can point not too long ago. We were able to, in the first parliament, the first minority parliament in 2019, we were able to get help to people, the paid sick leave, starting that was something that was done outside of a confidence vote. We were able to get more help through CERB. That was outside of a confidence vote. And so we were able to get more help to people outside of confidence motions. And we're going to continue to use the tools that we have to do that. Even in the budget, though, this deal includes that we'll be working on making sure that even in budgets that what's in there has to be also aligned with our values, and we'll work hard to make sure that each budget reflects our priorities as well.
And just on.
So he's talking about this dental care that they say they're going to bring in, and pharmacare, so free prescriptions for everyone, I guess, is what it means. Now, you must have some opinions on that, because healthcare is really more of a provincial jurisdiction.
That's right. So I don't even know why he's really tapping into that, but
I mean, they do have, the provinces get transfer payments from the federal government, and universal health care is enshrined at a national level. I have pretty strong views on healthcare. I also have strong views on this long-term care issue that he brought up, and I strongly disagree with him across the board. I think our healthcare system is in shambles.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it has, and yet they want more government healthcare, and they're selling this to people like it's a great thing. But I'll throw it to you and get your views on this.
Well, yes, I agree with you. Our healthcare is in shambles. We need to focus. I think we need to focus on our hospitals for starters, because that's where a lot of the issues are. Our hospitals are grossly understaffed, and throughout these past 2 years, they kept on saying the staff are maxed out and they can't handle the influx of patients because of COVID. I know a lot of people on the inside. I know people that work in the ICU. I know them. They're right inside there. It had nothing to do with influx of COVID patients. It's staffing issues. That's what this is. It's all about staffing issues. There's this hallway healthcare, it's not because we don't have the beds. It's not because we don't have the hospitals. I know of hospitals in the GTA, newly built hospitals, that the top 3 floors they're vacant. They're not even being used because they don't have the staff. They don't have anybody to have the beds to operate the beds. So I don't think they should be offering any more healthcare to anybody until they get things fixed, because offering dental, and what else does he want to offer? Prescriptions.
Free prescriptions.
Yeah. My personal opinion, and this is just my personal opinion, this is not a New Blue thing, but I've contemplated having 2 levels of healthcare, and that it could possibly work. And if people, kind of like in the United States, where you can purchase your own healthcare if you want, to have the ability to provide that option to people if they want to buy healthcare. I don't know if that would ever go, but I would be open-minded to hearing somebody that could propose some kind of deal for.
Interesting to hear you say that, because the NDP and people in who advocate for socialist healthcare will say we can't have a 2-tier healthcare system. That's just not fair. Everyone has to be treated the same. But here's the truth, and they don't tell you this. If you're rich, like Justin Trudeau or Jagmeet Singh, and you can't get the care that you need here, you know what they do?
They get it.
They'll fly to another country, including the United States, to get the medical procedures that they need. So we already have a 2-tier healthcare system. It's just that if you're middle class, or you're, just an average Canadian, and you're not rich, you can't avail yourself of that. You can't do that.
That's right. But I mean, just like in the States, people can buy into healthcare.
Yep.
So why? But I get it. I understand that some people don't have the financial resources to do that. So still have that level of healthcare that is provided to people. I think there are things that used to be available to us that are not. I remember going to get lab work done not that long ago. No, it wasn't myself. It was my son. He had to get lab work done. He had to pay for it,
Mhm.
you know? And I'm like, pay? Yeah, he had to pay $10 to get this lab work done. And it was because of a certain prescription he was on. They had to check his liver to make sure his liver was reacting okay to this prescription, but we had to pay for it at the lab. So I'm thinking, okay, well, we're starting to have to pay for things anyway. So I don't know. Anyway, no, we should not be imposing any more healthcare on the government. I think we need to fix our staffing issues. That's what I think we need to fix.
Like how can they justify implementing these hugely expensive new programs when they can't even get the healthcare that we have now?
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And I just think there's a lot of red tape involved with a lot of, I think there's people coming to our country, immigrants that have the ability to be doctors and nurses, but they get so caught up in all the bureaucracy that they can't even do what they're trained to do. So maybe eliminate some of these red tapes and let some of these people that are qualified to be doctors or nurses or whatnot, let them to do it. And the people that have been fired from their jobs because of a medical choice that they made, get them to come back and start working. And you would be eliminating a lot of problems if we had these places properly staffed. I think that's 90% of the problem is the staffing shortages. You can't operate a hospital if you don't have staff. So
yes. Not enough beds, not enough staff, not enough resources. It's all underfunded because they have created this system that is supposed to be free. Yeah. And when you have a free system, which is supposed to be free, there's no price mechanism in place to send proper signals to the public over what they should consume and what they shouldn't consume. So the only economic tool the government has left at their disposal at that point is rationing. They can limit the supply. So that's what they do. And that's why we end up with long waiting lists. And, there's another issue that comes to mind. All I heard was softball questions from these mainstream media reporters today in these news conferences. Mm-hmm. But, here's the thing that isn't coming to light yet, but I think it will eventually. Mm-hmm. Healthcare is a provincial jurisdiction. Transfer payments from the federal government are made to provinces to help fund healthcare, but largely it's provincial. And all the responsibility is primarily provincial.
Right.
Right. It's all like the OHIP, right? Ontario Health Insurance Plan. And it's the same across the country. Here's the thing. It's pretty easy for Justin Trudeau with the wave of the scratch of a signature on a piece of legislation to say there shall be free dental care across the country. Every province must make this happen.
Right.
And then it's up to the provinces to do it. And then will he adequately fund that with adequate transfer payments to do so? Or will he underfund it and then offload or download the expense onto the provinces to get this done and then put their budgets more under the gun? So he gets to be the hero. The provinces have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't properly help fund it federally, then somehow the provincial governments have to come up with all this money. Not only for that, but I mean, I don't know how the legislation or the Health Act federally will affect pharmacare, but again, that will have to be administered at the provincial level, and the funding will have to be just laid out at the provincial. Same thing. They can download this stuff. That's what the province did under a previous Conservative government. provincially in Ontario is they downloaded a lot of, when they were trying to balance the budget, they would download a lot of programs and expenses onto municipalities.
Yep, to the municipal level. Yeah.
Yes.
And
so
then
that's what
you
I
have
see
to
this.
come up with it. Yeah. And I could see Justin doing that. He's done that before. And I remember Doug Ford standing there going, we can't do this. We need money. You tell us to do it. But this is when I think he and Justin weren't buddy with each other. But I remember him calling out Justin Trudeau. I forget what the issue was, but he basically said, you tell us to do it, but you don't give us the money. So, and Justin Trudeau could easily do that. He could say, yep, prescriptions for everybody, dental for everybody, you guys figure it out. And then you got to take off, you got to skim somewhere. And another thing with our healthcare is there's too many top feeders. There's too many people at the top being paid. Nobody deserves to get paid $450,000. I'm sorry. Unless you invent the cure to cancer or do some profound life-saving thing, I don't care who you are, you do not deserve $450,000. Nobody deserves to be paid that from our government. So,
well, after seeing the job that some of these medical officers of health have done in a lot of these jurisdictions, the local medical officers of health, then the money those guys made. And here's the thing, they were incentivized to keep this going because they all made huge bonuses and overtime checks because they were working overtime. During the pandemic. Some of them doubled and got 2.5 times their regular pay.
I know they did
over these past 2.5 years.
And the doctors, the family, or a lot of healthcare providers were incentivized for the past 2 years, financially incentivized to push the vaccines, So for people that only watch CBC, Global, CNN, when they only watch that and they have been instilled with all of this fear, but yet don't know what's really happening behind the scenes, you gotta, when people like you and I are speaking, they have to be open-minded to say, okay, well, is there something really happening behind the scenes that's pushing these doctors to push things like the vaccine on us and be so, it's relentless. It's constant how they're pushing these things, but they're pushing it because they're being financially incentivized, it's corrupt. So these people do not deserve to be paid. And I'm not saying doctors don't deserve to get paid a good tidy sum, but I don't know.
Well, the problem is, and we're offering you perspectives here, folks, that you're not getting anyplace else, which is why we really need you to support what we're doing. You can donate at freedomreporters.com. And I'm going to share some other perspectives in just a moment that I think will help shape your opinion a little bit as you seek the truth. And I think I will help get you a little closer to the truth in just a moment. But again, you can click the link in the YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble descriptions to donate at freedomreporters.com. We really do need your support, and we've had a lot of support. Appreciate that, but we have more equipment to buy and other things to do here, and we need to get some people out into the field more as well. So you can help us do that by donating or subscribing because that helps the algorithms and helps people find us when we get more and more subscribers. So share it too. Share this stuff out. There are other issues surrounding this, like the dental care stuff. Rhonda, I have to tell you, I think that the dental care I get is stellar. Now, granted, I have health insurance.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's fine. But there is very affordable health insurance that people can buy if they're self-employed or maybe they're even on welfare. There is health insurance that people can buy, including dental insurance. And you can get first-rate dental care with, 2 checkups a year and cavities filled and all these things with, it's all very, very affordable if you have the presence of mind to go out and purchase very affordable, like what is it, Blue Cross insurance and things like this. And you can get that.
Yes. And
so if the government imposes this right? Now you have all these privately run dental clinics, right? All these dentists who have invested heavily in their offices, in their equipment after, investing in their education and everything. I mean, I'm of the opinion, there's no waiting list for me to get in to see a dentist.
No.
And I can get all kinds of different kinds of procedures done. I believe that our healthcare system, as it relates to dental work, dentists, actually functions better than our
Healthcare?
hospital.
Yes.
I really believe it.
Yes,
And here
it
they
does.
are riding in on their horses, pretending to be white knights. We're
Right.
going to give everybody free dental care. You wait.
Yeah, I know.
What are they going to do? They're going to confiscate these private dental practices. They're going to put these guys out of business. Are they going to compensate these guys? When you leave school and you're trained as a dentist, it
Yeah.
costs you a fortune to set up your practice.
Practice. I know. And it takes them
Huge money.
years.
What are they going to do for those guys? Like, these are all very important questions, and yet this is supposed to be a done deal.
I know.
And is anybody going to step in and ask these important questions? And where's all this going to end up? And you mark my words, they do this, you're going to have waiting lists a mile long and years long to
Yeah.
get,
Into
a root canal.
I know. And a lot of dentists, I know people that don't have health care and they just pay out of pocket for and most of these dentists, they work with people. If they know you don't have any kind of health insurance or dental insurance, they will, they might not charge the same rate. So
right.
I think for the most part, dentists work with people based on if they have dental insurance or they don't have dental insurance. So yeah, I just think
I've seen dentists do things for free.
yes.
I've even seen dentists get together and hold clinics to give people free dental care to people who haven't, who don't have dental insurance.
Yeah.
So I know that stuff goes on all the time.
And if he's so worried about dental, why is he not worried about eye care? I mean, I think getting an eye checkup, especially people as they get older, and having an eye checkup every couple of years, ophthalmologists can see a lot of things in your eyes, but they can tell, that you're predisposed to diabetes or a lot of autoimmune diseases. They can tell by looking at your eyes, but they've ixnayed that. So people, they're not going to be going to the they're not going to be going to the eye doctor anymore. So I don't know. They're not prioritizing.
And how is it that Justin Trudeau can sit there and say to our veterans, you're asking for more than we can afford to give right now, but then turn around and do this? Where is he going to get the money for this?
Yeah.
And the question is dental care really that big of an issue right now that, like, I don't think it's been top of mind for Canadians.
Yeah.
Maybe
I don't know. I don't know if it is. I don't know. I think most people that I know have access to dental care, whether it's they have insurance or they pay out of their pocket from a dentist that gives them a fair price for what they're receiving. So
yeah, or as I say, I've even seen, these guys get together and do some of this stuff for free.
yeah,
They have.
I mean, Jagmeet Singh is a socialist. He wants everything for free. That's just who the NDP are. They want everything. Gimme, gimme, gimme. I want everything for free. I want to get paid to sit at home. I want to receive CERB. I want to get free healthcare, free tires. I don't know, whatever, even though that wasn't the NDP, was it? I don't know, but I don't know. But there's a lot of people, they don't want handouts. A lot of people want to work for what they're, and that's how a lot of people have self-worth, because they know they worked and they can provide for themselves and their families. But it's almost like the NDP and the Liberals want to take that away from people.
That's an interesting thing to say. And I think that's what people also don't understand. This is a trap. even
Mhm.
our complete, I agree with you. I think that we should have, private element to our
Mhm.
healthcare,
Mhm.
because then you make sure that people don't leave the country to get higher end
Right.
healthcare services, and that money stays here, and then that can be put back into the system and used to help people who are less fortunate, right?
Yeah,
It makes the
absolutely.
whole system stronger,
Yep.
especially if people can afford to pay. Then if they can avail themselves of for-profit services, then those
Yep.
profits could be taxed, and
Sure.
some of
Yep.
that money could be put back into the system again, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But they
Yep.
don't think in those terms. So I think
No.
you're right on the money there. But the other thing is, when they socialize all of this stuff and they put universality at the core of all this and prevent people from jumping the queue or taking advantage of anything that is private, when they take that private element right out, what they're really doing is they're taking away your choice.
That's
No
right.
choice. And we've seen the problem with that. Plus, here's the other thing. What did we experience during this pandemic? This is the trap. There's one healthcare system.
Mhm.
And during the pandemic, what did they do? They used our healthcare as a weapon against us.
Mhm.
If you don't get this, you don't get that. If
Right.
you don't get this in your arm, you don't get a transplant.
That's right.
That's
But
still in place.
you know what, Rick? It was even the people who did get the thing in the arm, they still had their rights taken away from them because there was a lot of people who did receive the vaccine that were in queue to have, they call them elective surgeries, but so I don't call somebody who has to have, cancer taken out of their body as an elective surgery. I don't call somebody who has to have open heart surgery an elective surgery. These were life altering surgeries and were vaccinated. And a lot of those people were prevented from having their surgeries. So,
Yes, they were rationing care and using it
yeah,
as a convenient excuse to do just that, so
yep,
that they didn't have to
that's
pay for
right.
it. And this, call me a conspiracy theorist, okay? But I don't think they give a damn about the old people.
No, they
They
don't.
are
Oh,
just
no,
like,
that's not a conspiracy.
let
No,
them die. Let them die.
they
Cancel the
don't.
surgeries. Just let them go. Let them
They don't
go.
care. I've come to the conclusion, and I'll be honest with you, I went during this whole process, these past 2 years, I kind of went through an internal crisis because I just couldn't believe that human beings that are in place to look after us, quote unquote, look after us, that they don't care. I had a hard time really believing that and absorbing that, but it's true. They don't care. They do not care about us. And
They
that's what
don't.
I try to tell people. Don't think that these people care about you because they don't. They do not. The
This
ones up at the top.
This guy on the screen right now does not care about you. Justin Trudeau does not care about you. These people view us like cattle or
Rick,
pets.
the guy on the screen right now, he doesn't even know what his name is.
That's right. And I'm gonna, we're getting near the end of the broadcast tonight, but I
Yes.
have to play this because
Okay.
we have touched on this, New World Order and the World Economic Forum stuff just a little bit tonight. But he is speaking to over 230 of the top CEOs from the top corporations in the United States today, and this blows my mind. So the New World Order is supposed to be a conspiracy theory, right?
No, it's
Well,
not.
listen to what he says.
Okay.
I'm happy. I'm told I'm going to take some questions, Mary. Is that right? Well, I'm happy to start taking questions, but thank you for all you've been doing. I think, my mother had an expression, out of everything
Might have to
terrible,
back this
something
up a
good
bit.
will come if you look hard enough for it. I think this presents us with some significant
here it comes.
opportunities to make some real changes. We are at an inflection point, I believe, in the world economy, not just the world economy, in the world. It occurs every 3 or 4 generations. As one of the top military people said to me in a secure meeting the other day, 60 million people died between 1900 and 1946. And since then, we established a liberal world order, and that hadn't happened in a long while. A lot of people dying, but nowhere near the chaos. And now is a time when things are shifting. There's going to be a new world order out there, and we've got to lead it. We've got to unite the rest of the free world in doing it. So anyway, I'm going to hush up, Mary, fire away.
So he went off his regularly scheduled script there, obviously, and sort of stepped in it, because I'm certain that his handlers would have preferred that he not talk about that stuff.
Right. Yes.
So what do you think of that?
I don't know. I just laugh at him most of the time. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but the man is not, he shouldn't be president of the greatest nation in the world. So he Freudian slip, I guess. He probably didn't even know he wasn't supposed to talk about it. He probably talks about it and didn't realize he wasn't supposed to say it on that platform. So
yeah. Well, I mean, there it is. It's like, I was in this secret meeting, and with these, it was all confidential with my top advisors. And one of them top military guys said, this New World Order thing, we need to be leading that, Joe. And
he's
I
really
thought,
hard to follow. The bouncing ball. I just listen to him and I think, what's he saying? I don't really understand him half the time, but it's interesting to watch and listen. So
it does sort of illustrate for us, though, doesn't it, that these people really, they really are working on a sinister new world order, an agenda that, treats us like animals.
It's not conspiracy. It's out there. Like you can buy a book written by Klaus Schwab, and there's no conspiracy beyond it. That is not conspiracy. So if somebody says that's a conspiracy theory, 100% not a conspiracy theory. It's 100% an agenda with these global elitists, and they've got people signed up in our country and United States. There's, a lot of people involved right at the top. They're all involved in it. So no conspiracy. It's just, how do we fight them? That's it. Because I don't want any new world order. I want Canada. And I'm assuming most people want Canada.
And I want my country back too. It's gone. Justin Trudeau has destroyed it in short order. And that's largely because they've silenced so many of us. They've deplatformed so many people. He's throwing his political opponents in jail. He's working, I think, to outlaw his, political parties that are opposed to him. He's, he's got his boot on the necks of a lot of people that have not been willing to bend the knee to him. And we need to oppose that. And that being said, as we kind of bring things to a conclusion here tonight, you can donate to us at freedomreporters.com. Support what we're doing. We really do need your help. And you can click the hot links in the descriptions on YouTube, Facebook, on Rumble, etc. And I'm going to throw it over to Rhonda to say a few final words here tonight as we bring things to a conclusion.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks for having me on the show, Rick. I appreciate that. And anytime you want to invite me back after our platform is revealed in a couple of weeks, if you want to invite me back and I could speak on more specific topics. So I just want to tell everyone to do some research before the June 2nd election. The New Blue Party of Ontario is the way to go. They are on Facebook. They have a website, very detailed. You can friend request me on Facebook and ask me questions if you want to know anything specifically about the Chatham-Kent-Leamington riding. I can put you in direction of somebody in Essex or Lambton-Kent Middlesex. Anyway, so yeah, New Blue is the way to go, and we are going to fight to bring Ontario back. So we hope that everybody in your audience will come along for the ride with us.
Excellent. Rhonda Jubenville, freedom fighter, and now and a freedom reporter, and now a candidate for the New Blue Party of Ontario. And she is a good friend of mine, and I can vouch for her when I say I trust her, which is more than I can say for 99.9999999% of all the other politicians out there. Very few exceptions to that. But yeah, has worked tirelessly over the past 2 years, fighting for people's freedom, fighting for all of us. So best of luck, Rhonda, and we will absolutely have you back on over the course of the coming months to, keep us abreast of what's going on with your campaign.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. And with that being said, folks, we will be back on tomorrow night here on the Maverick News Channel with more of the Freedom Reporters. I think Brendan might be back tomorrow. He was a little under the weather tonight. So I hope he's feeling better. And I hope it's not the you-know-what.
Yeah, I hope so.
But if it is, I'm sure he'll be fine. And
sure he will.
I think tomorrow night we have Liz Valley on with us as a special guest. So looking forward to that because she's always a bright light and she'll inject a lot of positivity into the broadcast, which is what you need when I'm on because I'm Mr. Negative.
That's funny.
So we'll be back tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the Maverick News Channel. We are the antivirus program for your mind. Thanks, everyone, for watching.